Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto has all for one. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by WINDSTORM16 and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. That was a close one. Thought Naruto Uzumaki as he jumped down from a tree into a clearing with a small shack with a large scroll strapped to his back. Really thought the old man was gonna get me there. Naruto muttered while grabbing the scroll and setting it down before grinning in excitement, knowing that once he learns a jutsu from the forbidden scroll, he can finally become a ninja. That's what his teacher Mizuki told him earlier after having failed the graduation exam for a third time due to his inability to perform the clone jutsu, with the clones always coming out pale and dead looking. Naruto had been close to just giving up on trying to become a ninja, starting to doubt if he'd ever be able to achieve his dream of becoming a ninja and then Hokage. Until he is approached by Mizuki, who told him about a secret makeup test where he'd able to become a ninja. All he had to do was get into the Hokage's office and steal the forbidden scroll before taking it to his current location and learn one jutsu from it. After that, he just had to wait for Mizuki to show up and show him what jutsu he'd learned and he'd graduate and become a ninja. Though Naruto had run into a problem when the Sandaime Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, or the old man as Naruto called him, had shown up right when he was taking the scroll. Luckily, he was able to escape and knock the Hokage out with his sexy jutsu, knowing that'll give him plenty of time to get away. It was kind of weird the old man showed up, since wouldn't he know about the test? Or was that on purpose, to give a sense of realism for those taking it and figure out a means to escape being caught on the fly? Naruto thought, finding it a little strange the Hokage showed up when he did, along with looking confused at why he was there. Then again, maybe I'm supposed to complete any time before team assignments and he didn't expect me to do it tonight. Thought Naruto, figuring he was also able to complete the test at any point, with the Sandaime just being surprised he was doing it the same night that he failed. Nodding to himself, Naruto sat down and opened up the forbidden scroll to see what jutsu it had and which ones he'd be able to learn. Only to grunt when he was suddenly forced onto the ground while feeling something be locked around his arms and legs, restraining them. Followed by something being placed on his forehead as he felt his chakra being sealed away. Naruto Uzumaki, you are hereby under arrest for theft of the scroll of seals and attempted desertion. Someone said in a blank voice, making Naruto's eyes widen at what they said before he looked around to see he was surrounded by Anbu wearing blank masks. What the hell are you talking about? I wasn't trying to run away and I was gonna, said Naruto as he tried explaining what happened, only be silenced when one of the Anbu gave him a chop to the neck, knocking the whiskered blonde out. Later. Once he started coming to, the first thing Naruto saw was that he was no longer outside, instead being in a small prison cell with a cot, a sink, and a toilet. The sight making Naruto shoot up, only to see that he also had a straitjacket on, chains locked around his ankles, and his chakra was still sealed. What the hell is happening? Naruto thought, panicking and trying to break free, not believing the old man would actually lock him up, thinking the Anbu were sent after him by the Hokage. Ah, the traitor has woken up finally. Someone said, making Naruto stop his attempts to break free with his head snapping towards whoever spoke, only to see someone standing in front of the door. The person appeared to be a frail old man, Naruto guessing he was the same age as the Hokage, walking with a wooden cane. He had black, shaggy hair, and his right eye was bandaged, which were also wrapped around his head, along with an X-shaped scar on his chin. He wore a white shirt with a black or dark gray robe over the top of it covering from his feet to just over his right shoulder. Who the hell are you? And why am I? Naruto said, only to gag when the old man jabbed him in the throat with his cane. You will be silent, boy. All you need to know is that I am Danzum Shimura and you are now a prisoner for stealing the forbidden scroll and attempting to desert Konoha. Said Danzum, as the Uzumaki coughed from having his throat hit. I wasn't trying to desert the village. I was just completing a test that Mizuki-sensei gave me. If I completed it, then I would become a ninja. I wasn't really stealing it. Said Naruto in his defense. The likely story. You honestly expect me to believe that out of all the students that failed, only you were given such a test? You truly do have an overinflated sense of self-worth, don't you, boy? To think you are arrogant enough to believe you alone deserve a chance to become a ninja. Hiruzen really was a fool to give you so much freedom. Danzum said, making Naruto glare at him at the insults to himself and the Hokage. Shut it, you old bastard. I don't think anything, and maybe the other students were given their own tests to complete. And don't talk about the old man, that way you, Naruto said, only to be cut off when Danzum swung his cane, slamming it across his face, knocking Naruto down. You are doing nothing but further proving my point with your arrogance and spoiled personality to speak to me in such a way. I am one of Konoha's elders and a member of the council. The fact you don't know this and spout about becoming Hokage one day only speaks volumes of your own incompetence and the ruin you would bring to Konoha if you somehow achieved such a goal," said Danzm, looking down at Naruto in annoyance and disgust, with Naruto glaring at him shakily from the strike to his head. What the hell are you talking about?" demanded Naruto, getting angry at what this guy was talking about. "You and the delusional belief that you could actually become Hokage, which Hiruzen has done nothing to curb, along with your desire to remain as nothing but a spoiled brat that believes he's untouchable. You shout every day at least half 100 times that you will become Hokage, yet you do not know the first thing about what it means to be Hokage," Danzm said, his voice being even until the end when some anger broke through as he glared at Naruto. "Yes, I do. Being Hokage means you're the strongest in the village, the person everyone looks up to and acknowledges. That's what being Naruto said, only to be met with another strike from Danzm's cane. Spoken like a true child that knows nothing and lives in his own fantasies. Being Hokage is not about being looked up to, acknowledged, or even being the strongest, it's about being a leader. A leader who makes the hard choices for the good of the village, no matter what those choices may be. Eliminating any and all threats while ensuring that Konoha always comes out on top of our enemies, with them being dealt with permanently. It's about making sacrifices for the greater good, no matter who dies or needs to be killed. Even if they're allies, there is nothing that mustn't be sacrificed for the sake of Konoha. That is what it means to be Hokage, something you could never have hoped to understand and only lead this village to ruin, never grasping the burden and requirements that come with the title. Even so, it would have been impossible for you to become Hokage, as you are already Konoha's weapon to be unleashed on our enemies," said Danzm, with Naruto shaking throughout the speech, before freezing at the last part. What did you just say?" Naruto said, with the elder merely scoffing in annoyance. "Of course, you don't know, with Hiruzen's naive attempt to make you think you were a normal child. You were made Konoha's weapon the day you were born, when the Kikbi no Imko was sealed within you, making you its Shinchikiki. The rest of your generation may believe the Yondaime defeated and killed the fox, but that is merely a lie. But everyone else knows the truth, that the Kikbi was sealed within you. But Hiruzen was too soft, and rather than ensure you were properly trained to serve Konoha, he left you alone, unattended, and unsupervised. Letting you get away with anything you wanted. Resulting in you growing into the arrogant, petulant, and spoiled brat you are now. And look at where that has gotten him, you dared to steal the forbidden scroll in desert Konoha, believing you are above retribution," said Danzm while looking at the whiskered blonde who was shaking at everything he just heard. "Even if what you say is true and you were given secret tests to become a ninja, the only thing you would have accomplished is depriving Konoha of its Shinchikiki. Your idealism and naive belief that ninja are some sort of hero would have only led to an early grave for yourself and anyone unlucky enough to be on your team. I wouldn't be surprised if you purposely revealed yourself in some flashy and obnoxious manner on your first mission outside of the village that would only serve to get you and your comrades killed. Ninjas are not heroes, saviors, friends, or allies, they are tools meant to be used by their leaders as they see fit. They fulfill their orders to the letter, no matter what they are. If they are to slaughter an entire village to kill a single enemy hiding there, they're to do so without hesitation. Turn villages against each other to make them go to war and destroy each other, it's expected to happen. And if they need to kill themselves to protect information they have, then they would do so for the sake of their village. That is what being a ninja means, and you would be no ninja, only a fool living in a fantasy," Danzm said, with Naruto giving him a weak glare as everything he believed and knew was being ripped apart. The all old ma man why when Naruto stuttered, while desperately trying to hold on to the belief the Hokage will at least try to find him. "And before you say anything about some preconceived notion that Hiruzen will come save you, no one even knows you are here, except those loyal to me. As far as anyone will know, you deserted Konoha after stealing the forbidden scroll. And while I do hate such disloyalty, especially from the village's weapon, I do thank you for giving me the tools needed to finally remove Hiruzen and take the position of Hokage for myself. Ensuring that Konoha will finally become what it was always meant to be. As for you, you'll be conditioned and turned into the weapon you were supposed to be," Danzm said before turning around, having his rude Anbu open the door, letting him out and leaving the shocked and horrified Naruto behind. "Locate Mizuki now, kill him and his fiancée," ordered Danzm, fully knowing that Naruto had been telling the truth about Mizuki and would have him and his fiancée dealt with, refusing to let a traitor and his accomplice live. Though Danzm also wasn't going to let such an opportunity to escape him, getting the chance to not only get his hands on the Jinchuriki and condition him into being Konoha's loyal weapon, but also the chance to remove Hiruzen from his position and get the support needed to name himself Hokage. And right now, Hiruzen's still trying to find the boy and the forbidden scroll, giving me enough time to report to the fire daemon about what's happened to finally have him removed. You should have known this day was inevitable, old friend. You're too soft and gave too many chances. thought Dansum, having no regrets in what he'll do, knowing it was all for the greater good of Konoha. Time skip 6 months. 6 months have passed since Dansum was able to capture Naruto and began initiating his plans to condition him into a loyal weapon and take his rightful place as Hokage. But the Warhawk, having met with the Fire Daemon and telling him everything that had happened, or at least his own version of what had happened. Along with the sacrifice of having to use Kodomatsu Kami on the Daemon, Dansum was able to ensure he got him to remove Hiruzen as Hokage and gain the support needed to become the Goddamn Hokage. And the first thing Dansum had done was execute Hiruzen under the pretense of treason, not only for letting the Jinchuriki escape with the Forbidden Scroll, but also allowing Orochimaru to escape and become the threat he is today, as well as twisting some other events to pin the blame on Hiruzen to gain support from the villagers in executing him. Though Dansum also had to execute several others that would prove to be obstacles to his plans, including Shikaku Nara, Hiashi Hyuga and the Hyuga clan elders, Asuma Sarutobi, Kakashi Hatake, Kaharu, and Homura. Shikaku was executed as Dansum knew the Jonin commander would never willing join him and would interfere in his goals, and he could be easily replaced by another Nara, potentially his son after the proper conditioning. The Ashi was another obstacle that needed to be removed, with his and the Hyuga elder's death, giving Dansum access to the Caged Bird seal to place on ninja that had proved troublesome. Asuma, due to his refusal to serve the man that executed his father, despite the problems the two had. Kakashi, both to acquire his Sharingan eye and because he knew the man would never willingly follow him, given his role in foiling his plan to have Hiruzen assassinated. Kaharu and Homura were simply loose ends Dansum wanted to tie up. After that, he'd reintroduced his root Anbu back into the main forces as well and started to recruit promising new ninja into them to start their conditioning. As well as collecting a few others to be used for other purposes outside of being trained to become members of the Foundation. Of course, it wasn't to say that Dansum hadn't met resistance and opposition, with his ascension as Hokage in the form of a resistance cell, led by Might Guy. Having consisted of ninja that managed to escape him, while utilizing guerrilla warfare in their efforts to oppose him over the months. Before eventually meeting their end, thanks to a spy and traitor among their ranks, in the form of Neji Hyuga. With it being child's play to sway the branch family prodigy to his side, with the death of Hiashi and the elders. While even using the schematics of Caged Bird seal that he stole to have it removed from his forehead, once he was assured of his loyalty. But the remnants of the resistance then being scattered to the winds. Either hunted down by bounty hunters and Hunter Nin, or having gone into hiding while remaining of the radar. As for Naruto, the Warhawk had his root Anbu conditioning him into being a loyal weapon, first needing to break him down before he could be rebuilt. Which involved forcefully exposing him to the truth of what it means to be a ninja, as well as the secrets Hiruzen had been keeping from him to break away his ideals and beliefs. With the Jinchuriki having proven stubborn at first, but eventually they managed to finally break him, leaving just the conditioning and training into a proper weapon. Unfortunately, given how the boy only really knew the transformation jutsu and substitution jutsu, Dansum had to pull a rather risky move and had him experimented on with the Chimera jutsu. A jutsu created by Haruko, a missing nin from Konoha, created to absorb Kekkei Genkai, special physical traits, and chakra. Though it was limited to only absorbing 4 Kekkei Genkai at a time, with Dansum wanting it, so there'd be no limit to how many the boy can absorb. But this being done as a means to give him great power to make up for his lack of training and abilities. Which will also make it so he'll be even stronger once his training begins, having access to numerous Kekkei Genkai and abilities. And I'm sure Orochimaru will have plenty of Kekkei Genkai users under his control, all of them ripe for the picking, once I've dealt with him. Thought Dansum as he walked through his base towards Naruto's cell, wanting to check on the Jinchuriki to make sure he hasn't tried anything foolish. Arriving at the cell, Dansum entered it seeing Naruto sitting against the wall with his head lowered, his straitjacket and chains having been removed after he was mentally broken, since he no longer tried escaping. Though he still had seals placed on him keeping his chakra suppressed. Given that Dansum wasn't going to be taking chances for him to try something. He looked physically the same, aside from his once bright blonde hair had turned pure white gray, due to the stress and strain on his mind and body from the experiments and procedures. Along with his skin having turned much paler, which may make one think he was a corpse from how still he was. You needed me for something, Dansum-sama. Naruto said in a dead tone, making the Goddamn smirk, knowing it won't be long before his training can commence. No, not yet at least. I've merely come to inform that the Chunin exam finals will be taking place today, after which your training shall commence. I shall also be dealing with another traitor, Orochimaru, who's infiltrated the village and plans to invade with the help of Tsunagakure, our supposed allies. Said Dansum, having learned of Orochimaru's alliance with Suna and his planned invasion during the finals. He was going to let it happen, using it as a chance to deal with Orochimaru, as well as gain control of Tsunagakure and the Land of Wind. allowing him to gain control of Shukaku, giving him 2 bij to use for his eventual attacks on the remaining hidden villages. Not unless you die. Naruto muttered lowly, making Dansum look at him with narrowed eyes. What did you just say, boy? Demanded Dansum, not amused at his remark. Nothing, Dansum-sama. Unless you're hearing things, you decrepit fossil. Replied Naruto, while muttering the latter part, with the Warha clenching his cane tightly and approached the Uzumaki. Perhaps another session would do you some good if you still have some arrogance to be wiped away. Dansum threatened, not seeing Naruto gain a malicious grin on his face. Though Dansum's eyes widened when he suddenly sensed Naruto's chakra flare up as the suppression seals suddenly shattered. With Naruto taking advantage of his shock as he shot up and wrapped his hands around his throat, showing his sinister smile and his now dark crimson eyes shining in the darkness. And perhaps the world would be better off with you and the rest of this worthless village finally wiped off the face of the planet. Said Naruto as he strangled Dansum, the Warhawk gagging as he tried using Shisui Sharingan to put him under a Jinjutsu. Only to be shocked when nothing happened, even more so when Naruto's eyes suddenly gained 3 tomos in them, followed by them transforming into a swirl pattern. Looking, Dansum's shock only grew as he saw red energy flowing out him and into Naruto. Before realization dawned on him that this was the Chimera Jutsu at work and the Uzumaki was currently stealing his Sharingan, Mokuton and Chakra. Only leaving enough of the latter to keep Dansum alive for what he had planned for him. You called me arrogant, you old bastard. Yet the only arrogant one I see is you. You honestly thought you and your drones could break me. The only thing you succeeded in doing is waking up the part of me that I've kept buried for 13 damn years. Hatred, rage, anger, it's all been building up and you helped let it out. And let me tell you, the only thing my darkness and I hate more than Konoha is you. Naruto growled, glaring at Dansum in pure hatred, having since merged with his inner darkness, or Yami as it liked to be called, giving him the power boost he needed to break through the suppression seals when the time was right. But I will say this, you helped open my eyes, Dansum. To what Konoha and the rest of this damn world is like. Ninja really are just tools, weapons to be tossed aside once their use runs out and then replaced once they're gone. But you wanna know the funniest part, no one cares. No one cares how many lives need to be sacrificed or thrown away if it means they get just a little bit of power. After all, that's all the hidden villages care about, getting more power. It's an endless cycle that'll keep going and going and going until no one's left to continue it. Said Naruto, having finally accepted what the ninja world was really like and it honestly made him wonder why he ever wanted to become a ninja or Hokage at all. What's even funnier is you, Dansum. You think you're different, that you're above everyone else, that everything you do is for the greater good of Konoha, when really you're no different. You don't care about Konoha. If you'd been from any other village, you'd be pulling the same shit, just in a different setting. No, you only care about getting more power and control, not caring who you have to kill to get it. That's not just arrogant, that is hypocrisy at its finest. Naruto said, before slamming Dansum against the wall as wooden spikes shot out impaling his hands and feet before one stabbed through his throat, silencing any screams from the Warhawk and turning them into pain gurgles. So, thank you Dansum, for showing me the truth. The truth about this ugly, rotten, disease-ridden world and the people in it. You can die knowing I'll be bringing this world to its knees. Said Naruto, watching as the light left the Warhawk's eyes before he stabbed a large wooden spike through his head, destroying it completely. Once the Warhawk was dead, Naruto turned to the door before roots burst out of the ground and ripped it open, allowing the Uzumaki to walk out. With this also setting off an alarm altering all the root Anbu within the base to Naruto's escape. Not stopping his pace, Naruto watched as dozens of root Anbu appeared and jumped towards him with weapons drawn, only to be grabbed by the roots, trapping them and sealing their chakra. With the roots then bringing them close to the Uzumaki, allowing him to absorb their chakra and Kekkei Genkai, if they had any, before impaling them. Naruto feeling more of his strength return with each root member he absorbed, having been forced to starve and weaken himself to have Dansum lower his guard around him. Not helped that the suppression seals also cut him off from the Kikbi, weakening his healing factor. As much as I'd love to see this village be destroyed by Orochimaru and his followers, I can settle with just knowing it'll be destroyed. Thought Naruto, only caring about escaping and getting away from Konoha so he can begin his own plans. Though before he could leave, Naruto sensed 3 chakra signatures in another cell nearby, getting his attention as from what he could sense they seemed rather strong. And despite everything he'd gone through and plans to do, Naruto wasn't going to leave anyone else locked up here. Especially if they were important enough that the old bastard to keep them this close to him. Approaching the cell, Naruto had his roots tear open the wall, revealing 3 girls the same age as him and all wearing the same prison clothes as well. With one having long black hair with a blue tint, pale skin, and onyx-colored eyes. The second having pale skin, long brown hair that was straight on one side and braided on the other, and light brown eyes. while the third had pale skin as well, surprisingly bright red hair and matching crimson eyes. But the three tensing and backing away the moment the wall was ripped open, only relaxing a little when Naruto entered the cell, rather than Dansum or any of his followers. "Whu, you?" The brunette asked nervously and warily. "Naruto Uzumaki, and you three are?" said Naruto, looking at the three, with the black-haired girl's eyes widening at his name. "Naruto," said the girl, making the Jinchuriki look at her, seeing she somehow knew him only to soon recognize her. "Satsuki. What are you doing here?" Naruto asked in surprise to see Satsuki Uchiha here as well, with Satsuki scowling in anger. "That bastard Dansum had his drones grab me not long after he was named Hokage. He planned to use me as fucking breeding stock to make more Uchiha that were loyal to him, and so he could take the eyes of those that outlived their usefulness," Satsuki said, enraged at what Dansum planned to do to her, even more so at everything else he told her, having especially enjoyed taunting her at how he'd now have the Uchiha clan under his control. With her response making Naruto scowl, now wishing he'd killed Dansum more slowly and painfully, before he looked at the other two girls. "And who are you? Did Dansum grab you for breeding stock too?" questioned Naruto, making both girls shiver while the brunette shook her head. "And no, my body W was considered too W weak, but EPL planned to turn me into a weapon due to my Kekkei Genkai. My name's Yakumo Kurama by the way," Yakumo answered. "He did plan to use me as breeding stock, having grabbed me during the second stage of the Chunin exams after I awakened my chakra chains when a bear attacked me. My name's actually Karen Uzumaki," Karen said nervously, making Naruto stiffen and look at her with wide eyes before shaking his head. "We can talk later, after we get out of here and away from Konoha. After that, you three can leave or do whatever you want," Naruto said, intrigued on if Karen was actually a member of the Uzumaki clan, given how it was one of the secrets that Dansum revealed that the late Sandaime had kept from him. "If it's alright, can I go with you? I don't really have anyone here in Konoha or anywhere else to go, and you did save my life, so I want to repay you," said Yakumo, wanting to go with Naruto given he did just save her and she didn't have anywhere else to go. "Can I go too? I'd prefer never returning to Kusagakure ever again, and I'd like to stay with family if we're really related," Karen said, also wanting to go with Naruto for saving her and the fact they could be related. "Count me in too. I'm not staying in this village any longer than I have to. And right now, you three are the only ones I trust at the moment," said Satsuki, given she's been imprisoned with Yakumo and Karen for a few months now, while Naruto's freed her. Naruto looked at the three for a few moments, before nodding. "Alright, then follow me," Naruto replied, motioning them to follow him out of the cell in the base. But the girls being shocked as the roots continued grabbing Anbu and bringing them to Naruto who absorbed their chakra and abilities. "I'll explain later," said Naruto, the girls nodding slowly as they made their way out of the base and away from Konoha. Later Chunin, exams arena. "What's he planning?" thought Orochimaru while disguised as the Yondaime Kazukiage, annoyed that Dansum's yet to show up and start the finals, while seeing the crowd was starting to get impatient as well. When Orochimaru had first heard of what happened in Konoha, he'd been shocked that Dansum was somehow able to become Hokage, but also annoyed that he killed his former teacher. The Sannin having been looking forward to killing the Sandaime himself in the invasion. Though he could settle for killing Dansum, especially since unlike Sarutobi, he knew everything Dansum was capable of. "Not to mention that arm he was foolish enough to take from me," Orochimaru thought with a smirk, having put a hidden seal on Dansum's Sharingan arm as a failsafe should he ever need to kill the Warhawk, looking forward to expression when it withers away into dust. Even more so when he's then forced to fight all the past Hokage as well. Though now, Orochimaru would admit he's starting to get worried that Dansum's delay in showing up meant he was aware of his invasion and was planning something to counter it. "Perhaps I should just start it now," thought Orochimaru, having planned to start it during Gaara's match and he unleashed Shukaku, only to tense when a rude Anbu appeared in the booth. "Attention everyone, Hokage-sama has been found murdered, as of now the village is under lockdown and no one leaves. Anyone attempting to do so will be executed on the spot under suspicions of involvement in his death," said the Anbu, making Orochimaru's eyes widen in shock and disbelief, both that Dansum was already dead and this fool actually just said that. But this causing the entire crowd to begin panicking and running away, making the Sannin not letting the chance pass as he signaled Kabuto to activate the Temple of Nirvana Jinjutsu to start the invasion. With Naruto, Satsuki, Yakumo, and Karen. Meanwhile, away from Konoha, Naruto and the girls had arrived at a small town where they stole some clothes to change into. With Naruto having taken off his prison clothes and put on a white button-up shirt, a dark black suit, and black dress shoes. "Okay, we escaped, so now what?" Satsuki asked, wondering what exactly they were going to do now that they've escaped. For now, we bide our time and hide in the shadows, building up our power and influence throughout the criminal underground. Given how the ninja villages underestimate regular criminals and don't see them as a threat, it'll be a good place to start without having to deal with the villages catching wind of us or our plans," replied Naruto, wanting to lay low for the time being until they're stronger and had a larger power base. "Why would we need to do that? That power you have, it was absorbing the chakra from those Anbu and transferring it to you, not to mention you apparently also have the Mokuton. Couldn't you just do that with any ninja we encounter until no one can challenge you?" questioned Karen, making Naruto glance at her while rolling his eyes. "There's a difference between having power and actually knowing how to use. I was merely going off of instinct before. And even with my new power, the four of us won't be enough to topple the shinobi system and hidden villages. We need allies, resources, influence, and information before we can begin our plans," Naruto said, much to the girl's shock at hearing what he planned to do. "You want to topple the shinobi system and hidden villages?" Yakumo asked in shock and disbelief, not expecting that's what he planned to do. "Yes, don't you three? After everything that's happened, you two were planned to be used as breeding stocks, you to be turned into a weapon. Not to mention whatever else was done, either by Dansma or anyone else. Don't you want the chance to pay this world back?" said Naruto, making the three fall silent since he wasn't wrong. "Okay. Then who do you have in mind?" questioned Satsuki, Karen and Yakumo looking at him also curious of who he had in mind to join them, with Naruto merely giving a dark smirk with his eyes shining wickedly. "Who else? Those like us, the ones who have been hurt and betrayed by the shinobi system. Those who would rally under the banner of one who would see it burned down and replaced with a new system. Those are the people we will bring into the fold," Naruto answered, knowing it's also those kinds of people that are often underestimated and looked down on, which also makes them the most dangerous. It made the Uzumaki grin sinisterly as he imagined the proud and mighty hidden villages believing they're untouchable, that no one can stand against them and their power. Imagining the day they're ripped down from their ivory towers and shown that they should be afraid and despair. Why? Because he was here. How could things end so badly? Thought Baki while sitting in the Kazukiyage's office, a position that's now unfortunately been pushed onto him after recent events. 2 weeks have already passed since the invasion of Konoha, with everything having gone as Orochimaru planned. Even better, with the news that Dansma had been killed. Leaving the village leaderless with no one to rally the ninja and everyone panicking, making it rather easy to take Konoha down. With it having been over rather quickly once Gaara unleashed Shukaku. Effectively putting an end to Konohagakure, while anyone that managed to survive escaped when they could. After that, the Suna ninja had returned feeling victorious and satisfied, believing that with Konoha gone that their daemon would start sending them more missions and Suna could finally prosper. Only for things to become even worse once they did return to Suna. Learning that Orochimaru had killed the Kazukiyage on his way to Konoha to watch the finals, having discovered his body not far from the village on their way back. Leaving Suna without a cage, with the Suna council having chosen him to act as a temporary Kazukiyage in the meantime. But that wasn't where the bad news ended, as it wasn't long before the Wind Daemon had sent a detachment of samurai to Suna. But the daemon being less than happy at their betrayal of Konoha, much less during the Chunin exams, an event that was meant to maintain the balance of the elemental nations. And where he and his family could have been casualties in the crossfire of the invasion, no less. This, combined with Suna allying with one of the most notorious missing nin in history to betray their allies, had stained the reputation of both Sunagakure and the Land of Wind as a whole. Resulting in the Wind Daimyo having no choice but to pull even more funding and missions away from Suna as a result. Distancing himself and the Land of Wind as much as he can from Sunagakure so his entire country doesn't go down with a hidden village. While also looking into having a new hidden village constructed to replace Suna as the Land of Wind's main military force. With them now being in an even worse position than they were before, and Baki knew things would only get worse. As if they were willing ally with someone like Orochimaru to betray a village they were allied with, what would stop them from betraying another? Leaving them with no potential allies to seek out. And the other villages are no doubt already learning what happened and making their own plans. Damn that snake. Thought Baki, slamming his fists down on the desk, wishing the Kazukiyage never agreed to Orochimaru's plan in the first place if this was the end result. The Chunin shook his head, knowing it wouldn't change anything to think about what ifs. All he can do is do his best in preparing his village for the inevitable. Which was easier said than done, as Suna wasn't known for having many powerful ninja, with him now being the strongest with the Kazukiyage dead. While Gaara, Temari, and Kankuro were the strongest after him, though the latter two still had a ways to go before they could be actual threats to their enemies. It didn't help that with Rasa gone, there was no one who can control Gaara if he goes berserk again. Meaning I either need to think of something to keep Gaara calm and satisfied or find a way to kill our last line of defense. Baki thought, letting out a sigh, knowing the only thing Gaara cared about was killing people, no matter who they were. And while Baki didn't want to kill Suna's Jinchuriki, he also needed to look out for the entire village and what was best for it. Given how it won't be long before Gaara also realizes that no one can stop him anymore and will start killing whoever he wants without consequence. So for the good of Suna, he would at least need to think of countermeasures to take Gaara down. Looking out the window over the village, Baki gained a resigned expression, fully aware that no matter what he does or how hard the ninja train, Suna's days were numbered. And there was nothing here anyone could do to stop it. Kumagakure. Meanwhile within his office, the Yondaime Reikage was looking over a report from his spies in the Land of Fire about Konoha's destruction. With there having been a delay in delivering the message due to the invasion and needing to wait until the Suna Odo forces had cleared out. HMPH, seems like they really had a streak of bad luck. A thought with a slight smirk, as first they lost the Sandaime Hokage and got that Warhawk Dansme taking control, who's then foolish enough to execute the Sandaime and several powerful ninja, only to wind up dead himself. Now Konoha's completely destroyed and from what he's heard, Suna's well on its way to joining them as well. What's the plan, boss? With Konoha destroyed, Suna hanging on by a thread and Kiri still fighting a civil war that leaves Kumo and Iwa along with all the other minor hidden villages. Said Dari, A's right-hand man, wondering what the Reikage wanted to do next. Send word to all our forces and have them return to the village along with having them start training up to be ready. And put together a few teams to be sent to Konoha and see if there's anything left that'll be of use to us. I ordered, aware that this will lead to a much bigger war, possibly a fourth great shinobi war if things escalate that far. I'll get to it. Should we try sending any messages to other villages to see if they'll ally with us? Dari asked, since it had never hurt to have some allies, only for A to scoff and shake his head. No, Iwa wouldn't accept an alliance, since our villages are now the only ones at full strength. The smaller villages and nations don't have anything to offer us that'd prove beneficial in the long run, and Kiri's still fighting itself. We won't be finding any allies among the other villages, only enemies to take down. Replied A, knowing they wouldn't find many allies, if any, among the other hidden villages and nations. But either way, he's going to ensure his village survived the coming war and make sure that Kumo will come out on top. Iwagakure. Within his own office in Iwagakure was the Sandaime Tsuchikage Lenoki, also known as Lenoki of both scales, filling out his daily paperwork. Only to look up when the door his office opened and his granddaughter, Kuritsuchi, walked in with a smirk on her face. Hey old man. You'll never believe what happened to that village of tree huggers, they were, Kuritsuchi said, having just heard about the destruction of Konoha. They were destroyed by Orochimaru and Suna, yes, I'm already aware. You would have been aware as well if you didn't insist on taking a long-term mission before the information had been brought to my attention. Stated Lenoki, having learned about Konoha's destruction, making Kuritsuchi fall silent since she had only just returned to the village a few days ago from a long-term mission. Oh well, what are you going to do about it? Suna's now barely holding on, Kiri's still fighting a civil war that just leaves Kumo and they're probably already gearing up to fight. Said Kuritsuchi, wondering what her grandfather was planning to do. I've already recalled both Han and Rashi to the village while getting our forces to up their training and prepare for war, as well putting together teams to go to what's left of Konoha and see if there's anything that may prove valuable. As well as locate any survivors to be captured and find out what they know. Lenoki replied, already taking the necessary steps to begin preparing his village for the inevitable war. In fact, he'd been doing so since first getting word that Dansme had been named the Godaime Hokage, knowing a man like that would never be satisfied with just being Hokage. He'd use any reason, method, or excuse to attack the other hidden villages and nations, while ensuring he came out the winner. Though now, it seems his years of manipulation and backstabbing had caught up to the Warhawk, as he'd been found dead before the Suna Odo invasion began. And that's who Lenoki was really wary of, as opposed to the other villages. Knowing whoever killed Dansme had to be a dangerous individual. While that Tsuchikage may not know who the person is, it had to be someone Dansme crossed or tried using for his own goals, only for it to bite him in the end. Which is also why he planned to hire the Akatsuki to hunt down this person and kill them, doubting anyone who can kill the darkness of the shinobi didn't have plans of their own. He just needed to find out who they are first and how powerful they are before taking any actions that could make his village a target. Okay. And do you have anything for me to do or help with? Kuritsuchi asked, wanting to do her part in helping prepare her village, making Lenoki look at her thoughtfully. There is one thing you can do that will be of great help and importance. Lenoki replied, believing his granddaughter would be perfect to locate this person and find out more about them. Knowing how stubborn she can be and her refusal to give up on anything once she sets her mind to it, he's sure she can get him the information he needs and not be found out. Kurigakure. And this is accurate. questioned Yugura, looking between the report and his Anbu that delivered it. Yes, Mizuki-sama. Our spies saw firsthand, Konohagakure was invaded by the combined forces of Sunagakure and Itagakure, being led by Orochimaru. Dansum had also been reported as having been killed before the start of the invasion by an unknown assailant. The Anbu replied, with Yugura humming in thought at this new information before dropping the report on his desk. Good riddance, I say. All those clans and Kekkei Genkai they had, they're all better off dead. Yugura stated, not really caring about the destruction of one of the major hidden villages, but was pleased at all the Kekkei Genkai users that perished in the invasion. We've also started getting reports that both Kumagakure and Iwagakure have begun building up their forces, likely in preparation to begin fighting over the territory left behind, as well as to deal with Suna, now that they are weakened. Added the Anbu, which Yugura merely waved off. Worry less about what the other villages are doing and more about hunting down and eliminating those disgusting rebels. Said Yugura, with the Anbu bowing their head. Yes, Mizuki-sama. Said the Anbu before shining away. But the rebels. As if I don't have enough problems to worry about. Thought Mei Terumi, sighing in exhaustion while holding her head as she read over the report of Konoha's destruction. Originally, Mei had been hoping to speak with the Sandaime Hokage about a possible alliance between Konoha and the rebels to take back Kurigakure from Yugura. Only for that plan to end before it could begin when Dansum took control and executed the Sandaime as well as several other ninja. And while Mei knew they were desperate for allies, she wasn't desperate enough to ally with someone known as the Darkness of the Shinobi. Knowing just how badly that would end for them. Even if they did win, Dansum would likely install a puppet ruler as Mizukage while ensuring any threats were eliminated, herself included. Not to mention what would happen if Ao's Byakugan was discovered. Now it seemed another war was going to be fraught when they haven't even been able to end the civil war and retake Kiri. And from the look of things, I doubt that's even going to happen. Mei thought sadly, feeling like no matter what outcome Kiri was never going to be freed and changed. As even if they won, they'd just be attacked by another village taking advantage of their weakened state, and if they lost, then it wouldn't matter as they'd be dead, while the bloody mist would continue existing. While the rebels had no allies, a slowly decreasing amount of supplies, and every day they lost more men and women, with Mei knowing many of her followers were even starting to lose hope. Looking over the report again, Mei suddenly stopped at a certain part, the part where Dansum hadn't died during the invasion and was killed just before it started by an unknown assailant. An unknown assailant that was strong enough to kill Dansum, wipe out most of his root Anbu, and then escape with no one being the wiser of where they went. Thinking about it, Mei started gaining a rather foolish and dangerous idea of how they may be able to win this war, hopefully with no more deaths. If there's someone skilled enough to get into Konoha under Dansum's control, get close enough to the Warhawk to kill him, and then get back out with no one knowing who it was. Maybe they'd be able to do the same with Yugura and his allies. Thought Mei, believing if she could find this person and convince them to join the rebels, then they could have a chance at taking Kiri back. And if they killed Dansum, it meant they likely weren't fans of dictators like him, which could help in convincing them to join their cause. Plus, if by chance they're a guy, then I'll definitely be able to convince them to join us. Mei thought, willing to do anything she could to help her village, even more so if they're handsome and she can get them to stay permanently. But Orochimaru. That went far better than I could have hoped for. Thought Orochimaru as he sat in his throne with a satisfied smirk on his face, pleased that his goal of destroying Konoha had succeeded. He didn't even have to unleash the Hokage like he'd been planning to, due to the fact there was no one that could really stand against them. Given how Dansum executed Sarutobi, Kakashi, Asuma, and drove away most other ninja to try and form a resistance, then getting killed himself. The Sannin doubted he would have even needed Suna's help with how Dansum practically did most of the work for him by killing their strongest ninja. Though one thing that had been bugging Orochimaru was just who had killed Dansum, knowing he was still a formidable fighter despite his age, especially after receiving his Sharingan and Mokuton arm. Combine that with his paranoia of never going anywhere without several of his root Anbu nearby to act as shields. Along with his knowledge of Izanagi, it would take someone of considerable power to kill the Warhawk. Yet it seemed as if there was no fight, no chance for him to use Izanagi or call for backup, he was simply killed. Meaning the one who killed was someone Dansum didn't consider a threat or believed would never harm him. They'd also have to be fast enough to stop him from attempting to use a Genjutsu, along with most likely having knowledge of his abilities and his right arm. Thought Orochimaru, trying to think of who would have been able to kill Dansum without a fight, before freezing as realization dawned on him with the Sannin soon chuckling lowly. Kuku, oh Dansum, you never were one to waste an opportunity. Were you? Orochimaru said rhetorically, realizing just who had killed the Warhawk. The only question is, how exactly did Naruto gain the power to kill Dansum without him so much as being able to throw a punch? thought Orochimaru, seeing that Danzum's lies about Naruto defecting from Konoha were just that, a lie. He must have captured the boy to try and turn him into a weapon, which likely failed and instead only bred hatred and resentment towards Danzum and most likely Konoha as a whole. The boy must have been playing the broken lapdog game while making Danzum think he was controllable and waiting for the moment to strike. But how could he have gotten past his arm and Sharingan? Unless Danzum experimented on him, as from what I've heard, he was nothing impressive in the academy and it wouldn't do to have a weapon that was neither strong nor knew how to fight. Whatever was done to him must have given him some type of ability to prevent Danzum from using his chakra, perhaps having awakened his own chakra chains. Thought Orochimaru, trying to think of how Naruto succeeded in killing Danzum. Though, knowing that also brought up another question if Naruto did in fact kill Danzum. Then what was he planning right now? Unknown location. Meanwhile, within a hidden cave, 9 holographic figures appeared one by one. With these 9 being members of the Akatsuki organization, who were known as a mercenary group. Though that was merely a cover for their true plans. Itachi, Kisame, have either of you succeeded in locating the Kikbijinchuriki? Questioned Pain, the leader of the Akatsuki, looking at the 2 partners to see if they had any new information. Unfortunately, no leader Sama, it would appear that the Kikbijinchuriki is better at remaining undetected than we anticipated. Itachi replied as they've had no luck in locating Naruto after he defected from Konoha. Something that all of the Akatsuki doubted was true, just from the fact it was Danzum Shimura who made the claim, who didn't have the best reputation for being honest. But Pain also knew they couldn't take the risk that the Kikbijinchuriki really did defect and was hiding somewhere. Somehow. You'd think a kid wearing bright orange would stick out like a severed arm. Stated Kisame, wondering how a single kid wearing bright orange and carrying a giant scroll could be hard to find. Zetsu, what of you? Have you found any clues within Konoha? Pain said, turning to the Akatsuki's spymaster to see if he found anything in the ruins of Konoha. As with the destruction of Konoha, it gave them more freedom to move around the village to find clues to the whereabouts of the Kikbi. While the destruction of the village had amused several of the Akatsuki members, mostly Deidara and Haiden, others were less amused. With Itachi, Kakuzu and Pain himself, with Itachi having been silent for the most part but was inwardly enraged at what Danzum had done, along with the disappearance of his sister. While Kakuzu was annoyed at the loss of all the bounties he could have collected. And Pain knew that this could negatively affect their plans and potentially lead to another great ninja war, a war that could end up causing the deaths of several Jinchuriki and set their plans back. I wasn't able to discover much due to Shukaku burying the entire village in sand and the rest being reduced to rubble. But Danzum's base was still somewhat intact, given how someone had ripped it apart, most likely whoever killed him. What's surprising though, is that whoever it was they seemed to possess the Mokuton, due to large roots emerging from the walls and carrying the bodies of root members Zetsu said, with this shocking several members to hear of someone possessing the Mokuton Kekkei Genkai. If that's true, then I want this person found immediately. Ordered Pain, knowing someone who had the Mokuton would be a great advantage to the Akatsuki with their ability to restrain Jinchuriki and Bijk. And should they not join, then they were to be eliminated so they couldn't become a threat to the Akatsuki's plans. With Naruto, Satsuki, Yakumo, and Karen. Meanwhile, Naruto and the girls had kept moving away from Konoha towards their next destination, but also stopping to train themselves. With Naruto training to get back in shape from his imprisonment along with training his Mokuton, Sharingan, and Mangekyou Sharingan. As well as learning some jutsu from the Forbidden Scroll, which they had taken from Danzum's base before leaving, along with several other things that would prove useful. With Naruto learning the abilities granted to him as his Mangekyou Sharingan was the Genjutsu Kodomatsukami from Shisui Sharingan, which will prove very useful. Even more so, as it seems his Mokuton and healing factor helped in lowering the time it takes between uses for it. While the second ability was called Kamui, which he guessed he gained from Kakashi Sharingan, which Danzum had implanted into the palm of his arm after executing the copy ninja. Which allowed him to suck objects into a swirling distortion, turn intangible, and teleport himself to a pocket dimension. As for the girls, they did their own training as well, with Satsuki working on improving and mastering the jutsu she already knew. Which only consisted of the substitution jutsu, transformation jutsu, clone jutsu, rope escape jutsu, great fireball jutsu, phoenix age fire jutsu, and dragon fire jutsu, with her having planned on learning more before Danzum imprisoned her. But she was able to learn some more fire style ninjutsu from the Forbidden Scroll, giving her a second chance to expand her arsenal. Karen was training herself in Fukinjutsu, medical ninjutsu, and her chakra chains. Given Fukinjutsu was her clan's specialty, she'd been planning to learn medical ninjutsu to avoid having to use her heal bite, and her chakra chains were still incomplete and not as strong as they could be. And finally, Yakumo was working on improving her genjutsu to make them stronger and more effective, along with learning medical ninjutsu with Karen. Since she always had good chakra control, thanks to her Kekkei Genkai, it made it easy for her to learn it. With her also hoping to learn enough to help heal her body as well. The four of them having made sure to train every day, knowing it's only a matter of time before they're hunted down or discovered, so they wanted to make sure they would be prepared and ready. Okay, we've been traveling for 2 weeks and all you've told us is your plan. Would you mind telling us where we're going? Satsuki asked after they stopped training, wanting to know their exact destination, with Yakumo and Karen looking at the Jinchuriki, also wanting to know where they were going. The place known as the Valley of Lies, home to the village of Shangri-La. It's a village hidden in the valley and is considered a haven for those with bounties on their heads, where they're able to live without fear of bounty hunters. Everyone there uses transformations to hide their identities and to avoid talking about the past. It's also small enough that everyone knows everyone, making it useful for identifying visitors and possible threats. I heard about it from overhearing Dansm speaking with his Anbu about it outside my cell, having sent his agents there to either collect bounties from those there or forcefully recruit the inhabitants he considered useful. And after I killed him, I was able to swipe its exact location after we looted his base. Explained Naruto, surprising the girls that a place like that existed. And we're going there to recruit some new members? Questioned Yakumo, only for Naruto to shake his head. No, it will still take time before we can recruit anyone. Given that the only way we'd get people to follow us is by having a foolproof plan to destroy the shinobi system and the power to not only back it up but force them to obey. Neither of which we have at the moment, but we'll be going there to use it as a haven to train ourselves without worry of being found. As the valley also contains a river that produces a natural aroma around the location of the village, which is used as a medium for Jinjutsu. Allowing the residents to hide the village's location. Naruto answered, making Yakumo perk up at hearing the part about Jinjutsu. While his ability to absorb chakra and Kekkei Genkai was powerful, Naruto knew he himself wasn't, as he's still growing into his power. Making it so there's no guarantee anyone would follow him, being more likely to either kill or capture him to sell to the highest bidder as breeding stock to create their own ninja that can absorb Kekkei Genkai. So, he figured it'd be better to keep a low profile until he's much stronger and influential. And feared. The one thing that always gets results is when people fear you and what you can do to them. If I want them to stay in line, then they need to fear me more than anyone else. Thought Naruto, knowing as long as they were more afraid of him than his enemies, he'll be able to control anyone he recruits. That makes sense, better to wait until we're stronger and better trained before doing anything that could reveal ourselves. Though how long until we reach Shangri-La? Karen asked, seeing Naruto's point in keeping a low profile before they start recruiting and reveal themselves. Just a few more days, 2 or 3 at the most. Naruto replied before stiffening slightly when he sensed something, which got the girl's attention. Wasatsuki said, only to be silenced when Naruto held up a hand, stopping her before motioning them to be quiet and suppress their chakra. Figuring he must have sensed someone nearby, the three did so before quickly hiding with Yakumo casting a Jinjutsu over them, while Naruto slowly went towards where he sensed something. We can't keep hiding. Someone said, making Naruto tense and get ready for a fight at hearing there was more than one person. Yes, we can. Hiding is the only thing he can do. With my power, no one will accept me. And you swore we'd stick together. Said the other person, making Naruto frown as he grew close enough to where he could see it was 2 men talking with each other. That one seems strange. Thought Naruto, sensing that one of the men felt off, like they weren't really there. I know and we will Ameuki, we're friends, remember. But I just have a hard time staying in Shangri-La, it's difficult not being able to see my own reflection in the mirror. Sometimes, I can hardly even remember who I really am. The first person said, with who Naruto guessed was Ameuki letting out a sigh. I know Hohazuki, I feel it too, I have to remind myself of who I really am. I swear, we'll leave Shangri-La one day and expose its location, so we never have to worry about ever hearing from that village again. We just have to wait for the right moment when hopefully someone will come along that can help us destroy it. Replied Ameuki, making the Uzumaki narrow his eyes to hear they plan to betray Shangri-La and destroy it. Good, hopefully it'll be soon. I can't stand being in that village any longer, being surrounded by so many people willing to throw away their identity. Said Hohazuki, with Ameuki nodding in agreement. Yeah, but don't worry, one day we'll be able to look at our real selves again. We just need to be patient. Ameuki said, before the two began walking to return to Shangri-La. Only to be stopped when several wooden tendrils burst out of the ground and wrapped around them, while Naruto walked out from his hiding spot. I'm afraid that day will never come, since I can't have either of you betraying or destroying Shangri-La. Naruto said while approaching the two, only to pause when Ameuki suddenly dissolved into a pile of mud, while Hohazuki was enveloped in a puff of smoke which revealed Ameuki. A mud clone and a transformation. Thought Naruto, watching as Ameuki looked around wildly. Ameuki? Amayuki. Where are you? Amayuki shouted before grunting when Naruto backhanded him across the face. You're Amayuki, you were wearing a transformation jutsu, while your friend was nothing but a pile of mud, which I'm guessing you created. Said Naruto, with Amayuki blinking a few times before shaking his head. Why yes, I am Amayuki. I was disguised as my friend Hohazuki who died, but I was transformed into him to assume his identity. We were going to go to Shangri-La together, because of my Kekkei Genkai made it, so I was feared by our village, but he died. Said Amayuki, sounding like he was still having trouble realizing where he was, making Naruto raise a brow while seeing that he must have started losing his identity with how long he was transformed into his dead friend. And your Kekkei Genkai would be. Naruto trailed off, wanting to know what Kekkei Genkai Amayuki had before he took it. Huh? Oh right, my Kekkei Genkai, it's called Eaton. It lets me turn any earthen surface into mud that can trap people in it or even cause a landslide that can crush anything in its path. Amayuki answered before gasping when Naruto placed his hand over his face. Then it will certainly be a good addition to my collection. Stated Naruto with a smirk as he absorbed Amayuki's chakra and Eaton into himself, feeling his chakra reserves grow while his chakra nature changed to accommodate the new Kekkei Genkai. Once he absorbed all of Amayuki's chakra, Naruto placed his other hand on the back of the man's neck before giving a quick twist, snapping Amayuki's neck. Releasing the body from the wooden tendrils, Naruto channeled chakra into the ground, causing it to turn into mud beneath the body, which slowly sank until it was fully consumed. Very nice. Naruto said, knowing this Kekkei Genkai would be very useful, before he turned around to meet up with the girls and tell them what happened. After the encounter with Amayuki and acquiring his Deeten Kekkei Genkai, Naruto and the girls continued on their way to Shangri-La. Which wasn't long, with them arriving at a ledge that's looking over the Valley of Lies after 3 days of travel. While seeing the mountain range surrounding it, along with the river that ran through the valley, with them being able to smell the aroma it was producing. Karen. Use your mind's eye of Kagura and tell us where Shangri-La is, as well as how many people are within. Naruto said while looking at the redeed, wanting to see how good her sensing abilities were, along with finding out the exact number of people in Shangri-La. Okay. Replied Karen before she stepped forward and closed her eyes while opening her mind's eye. Soon Karen began seeing several small blue flames appear around her, which soon spread out and took the shape of her teammates. With her then spreading her senses out as more chakra signatures soon began appearing not far from where they were at the moment. I can see where it is, it's built inside that mountain over there. Karen said while pointing towards where she could sense Shangri-La's inhabitants. Good. And how many are within? Questioned Naruto, with Karen frowning as she began quietly counting all the signatures she could sense. There's about just a little over 100 people within. Most of them have Chunin level chakra reserves, while I can sense less than a dozen that have at least Chunin level reserves. And there's a handful that have Genin or below chakra reserves. Said Karen, much to Satsuki and Yakumo's amazement at how powerful her sensory abilities are. You can tell all that just from sensing them? Yakumo asked, having thought sensors could only sense a person's chakra and where they are, while Karen opened her eyes and nodded. Yeah. My mind's eye of Kagura lets me sense anyone or anything for several kilometers. And if I focus on a specific signature, I can perceive their exact location and movements in greater detail. I can also sense fluctuations in a person's chakra to tell if they're lying or under the influence of a genjutsu, including myself. And unlike other sensors, I don't mold my chakra, it just happens whenever I need it. Karen explained, much to their amazement, while knowing how useful such an ability would be. You can discuss abilities and techniques later. We still have work to do. Yakumo, would you be able to put up a genjutsu to hide us from everyone in Shangri-La while making it so they don't notice anything suspicious happening? Naruto said while turning to the brunette, who nodded in response. Yes, I should be able to, especially with the help of the river as a medium. Replied Yakumo, knowing she'd be able to cast a genjutsu like that on everyone in Shangri-La. Good. And make sure everyone doesn't hear anything either. Said Naruto, with the girls looking at him curiously, wondering why he's having them hide under a genjutsu rather than using transformations like everyone else. Though Yakumo nodded before she began weaving the genjutsu around them, making it so they couldn't be seen or heard by anyone. Once that was done, Naruto had them head towards the mountain where Shangri-La was hidden. Having to scale up the side of the mountain to locate the entrance and the side of it. Heading through the cave, the group soon arrived in a large cavern with numerous structures and buildings carved from the mountain itself. While at the center of the village, they could see a massive tree had been grown to support the mountain's weight. These people definitely take security seriously. Satsuki stated after seeing how nothing was built with supplies that could have been tracked back here, while the entrance didn't have any roads leading to it or was accessible to anyone who didn't know where to look for it. Given this place is a haven for anyone with bounties on their heads, it'd make sense they'd want to stay hidden where no one could find them. Though it's strange that they don't take better advantage of their situation," said Karen, given that Shangri-La was a true hidden village, no one knowing where it was located, who anyone really looked like, their abilities, nothing about the village or the people who lived in it. Even if it was to be found, enemies would still have to be careful, since they won't know what anyone is capable of, and that's not counting the jinjutsu that could be used against them. She could see why Dansm would have his root Anbu want to collect people from here to be turned into new drones. They choose to keep their heads buried in the sand, which will undoubtedly lead to their eventual destruction. Given Amayuki's plan to betray them, they wouldn't have been prepared and then wiped out, simply because they didn't think anyone would betray them. Naruto said, knowing that while Shangri-La was a perfect haven for those that wanted to stay hidden, he still saw it as foolish for them to grow complacent and lowering their guard. Karen, use your mind's eye of Kagura again, except this time focus only on signatures that are genin and below," said Naruto, confusing the girls at why he'd want her to do that, with Satsuki looking at him with narrowed eyes. "You didn't just bring us here to lay low and train. You have another reason for wanting to come to Shangri-La," said Satsuki, making Karen and Yakumo look at Naruto, who didn't deny the accusation. "No, I didn't. I didn't bother telling you three as I wasn't sure if I would be right, and while I'm now more positive that it is, I'd still prefer seeing if it's correct rather than share a plan that may or may not amount to anything. Now the location," Naruto said, turning back to Karen, who nodded slowly before closing her eyes and spread out her senses to get a better feel of her surroundings. "I sense two of them, near a signature that's genin level. While I can sense three others grouped close together, though one of them seems off, like it's been weakened. And I actually sense three smaller signatures with them, definitely below genin, but one of them seems more refined and near genin level. I'm guessing that one must have had prior training," said Karen as she reopened her eyes, while Naruto smirked before motioning them to head where the 6 signatures were, with Ariti giving direction. The group soon arriving at one of the homes that looked more out of the way than the rest, with Naruto then motioning Karen to sense what was happening inside. With the Uzumaki girl doing so, only for her eyes to snap open a moment later. 2 of the genin signatures just moved, taking the 3 smaller ones away, while the third looks like they're preparing to attack. "They know we're here," said Karen, making Satsuki and Yakumo tense that whoever was inside knew they were here, despite the latter's jinjutsu. Because they have a Kekkei Genkai that lets them see through things like jinjutsu. "Karen, when the person tries attacking, grab them with your chains," Naruto said, with Karen nodding, while the girls didn't even question how he knew the person had a Kekkei Genkai that can see through jinjutsu. Breaking open the door, not a moment later, someone dropped down from the ceiling and went to deliver a palm strike right to Naruto's heart. Only for them to be stopped and captured when Karen released her adamantine attacking chains, stopping them in their tracks before tossing them into a nearby wall, with the impact also dispelling the transformation they were wearing. With Satsuki and Yakumo being surprised at who they saw, though the latter had a frown at recognizing the person. "Hinata," Satsuki said in surprise to see the shy Haika here of all places, even more surprising that she seemed ready to kill them when they entered, along with the glare she was giving them all with her Byakugan activated. "Who sent you and how did you find us? Are you with that damn Warhawk?" Hinata demanded, not believing it was actually Satsuki, along with not knowing what happened to Dansm. "If you mean Dansm, then he's been dead for 2 weeks now," said Yakumo, which only made the Haika get angrier. "Liar. No one could even get close to that bastard and kill him thanks to the shields he surrounds himself with. You're probably working with him," retorted Hinata, not believing that Dansm was dead when he already killed everyone that'd oppose him, including her father. "I assure you that he's very much dead. I killed him myself, while draining away all his chakra until he was nothing but an empty husk, along with destroying his head and body for good measure," Naruto stated, making Hinata turn to him, only for her eyes to widen in shock when she looked at his chakra. "Then Naruto-kun," said Hinata, being able to recognize Naruto's chakra from all the times she's seen it before, despite it being darker and altered from the Kekkei Genkai he's absorbed, she still recognized it. "Ah, you recognize me, I'm guessing from my chakra. Good, that will hopefully make things go more smoothly. And I'm sure you have plenty of questions, but given that I'm sure your residence here has security seals in place, making it so any intruders who enter will alert the ones currently out. Who will likely be here any minute now," Naruto said, much to the surprise of Satsuki, Karen and Yakumo, before seeing the look of shock on Hinata's face, making them guess that the former blonde was right as well. "And I'm sure the ones currently hiding away right now can hear what's happening, then they know it will be in their best interest to come out now, rather than try anything foolish that would only get them a slow and painful death," added Naruto, knowing the others in the home could hear what's happening. With it taking a few moments before 5 people came out from another room, one of them being the same age as the rest of them, while the other looked to be about a year older than them. with one being a girl and the other a boy, while the other three were all girls that looked to be 4 or 5 years younger. While Satsuki recognized the older girl as Ino Yamanaka, another former classmate from the academy. Along with one of the kids as Hinata's younger sister, Hanabi Haika, though she didn't recognize the other ones. The first girl had fair skin, messy brown hair that went just past her shoulders, and brown eyes. With her wearing blue ninja sandals, black shorts that stopped just above her knees, a blue tank top, and a blue newsboy hat with a yellow brim, as well as black and white circles on either side that resembled eyes. The second girl has fair skin, orange hair tied up with red elastics into 2 very large pigtails, black eyes with a purple tint and a perpetual blush on her cheeks. And wearing a red tank top over a pink t-shirt layered at the bottom, gray pants, and blue ninja sandals. As for the only boy, he had shiny black hair and a bowl-cut round eyes with prominent lower eyelashes and very thick eyebrows while wearing a green jumpsuit. With the group seeing both his legs were covered in casts and he was in a wheelchair that Ino was pushing. They were also accompanied by a small white puppy, one that Naruto and Satsuki recognized as Akamaru, the Ninken partner of Kiba Inuzuka, another former classmate of theirs. Only they didn't sense anyone else in the home, so it was likely that the Inuzuka was dead as well. Smart choice. Naruto stated with a smirk before aiming his palm at the door, just as it burst open with 3 people running inside, only for gold chains to shoot out of Naruto's hand and capture them, much to the shock of everyone. "You have those too?" Karen asked, not expecting him to have chakra chains as well. "Yes, I unlocked them during my captivity while upgrading them to their complete form, a rather useful ability to keep to myself," replied Naruto, having unlocked his own adamantine sealing chains while he was imprisoned before he looked at the group he captured. With him and Satsuki recognizing one as Shino Aburam, another former classmate from the academy, while the other 2 were women, an adult and another that looked to be a year older than them, like Lee. The first is young woman with a slender frame, fair skin, light brown, pupilless eyes, violet hair pulled up into a short, spiky fanned-out ponytail. With her attire consisting of mesh armor that covers her from neck to her thighs, a tan overcoat with a purple inseam and a pocket on each side, a dark orange miniskirt, a dark blue belt and pale gray shin guards, along with a snake fang pendant around her neck. While the girl had fair skin, dark brown hair held up into 2 buns, and matching dark brown eyes. While wearing a pink sleeveless kipao-style blouse with red sleeve trimmings and yellow fastening buttons, dark green pants, a pouch strapped to her right thigh, and blue ninja sandals. For a few moments, no one said anything, with both groups being tense, not sure what to do or who would make the first move. With the woman looking at them with narrowed eyes, hating it being rendered helpless and unable to do anything. "Did that fucking warhick send you?" the woman demanded, assuming they were sent by Dansmeether to capture or kill them. "Hard to be sent by a dead man, even harder when I'm the one who killed him," stated Naruto, much to the shock of the others, aside from Hinata. "Now then, if you all are capable of behaving yourselves, you'll be released and perhaps we can come to an understanding and perhaps an agreement," Naruto said with a smirk, with the others looking to the woman, given she's technically the leader at the moment. "Fine, but try anything and you're all dead," warned the woman, figuring they didn't really have anything to lose and if they were sent by Dansm, who she doubted was really dead, then they likely wouldn't be wasting time by wanting to talk. "Adorable," said Naruto, his smirk not leaving his face, before he and Karen released the 4 of them, who quickly moved and joined the others, just in case this was a trick. "Okay, first of all why don't you tell us what the hell is going on? You're acting like you expected these guys to be here, how did you know?" Satsuki demanded while looking at Naruto, wanting to finally get some answers, Yakumo and Karen also looking at the Jinchuriki wanting to get answers. "Well first off, how about some introductions? Satsuki, Karen, Yakumo, meet Anko Mitarashi, Hinata Haika, Shino Aburam, Tenten, Ino Yamanaka, Rock Lee, Hanabi Haika, Kanoka Suratobi and Mogi Kazamatsuri. The last known surviving members of the resistance against Dansm," said Naruto, with all of them tensing that he knew all their names. "How do you know that? And how did you find us?" demanded Tenten, glaring at the 4 of them while itching to grab her weapons. "Simple, I was previously Dansm's prisoner and heard a lot of things, namely those that managed to survive his slaughter of the resistance, including all of you. After that, it was just a matter of guessing where you all went to, given you'd need to go into hiding as you have 2 Haikas with you, an Aburam, a Yamanaka and a Suratobi. You couldn't go to Suna since they were, at the time, still allied with Konoha. Kiri was out due to the civil war and how those with Kekkei Genkai are being hunted and massacred. Kumo and Iwa are rather self-explanatory with Konoha being in a cold war with the former, while the latter have a very rocky relationship with Konoha, especially after how the late Yondaime Hokage decimated Iwa's forces in the last Shinobi World War. All the smaller villages and nations were out as well since they don't make good hiding places. But when I heard about Shangri-La, I knew that's where you'd all go, given how out of the way and hidden it was. As for how I knew, with Anko being the former apprentice of Orochimaru, it's not far-fetched that he'd be aware of Shangri-La's location, meaning you'd also know where it is. And now we see I was right. Naruto explained with a smirk, while everyone looked at him with wide eyes. Ho how? Stuttered Ino, nervous that he was able to think of all that. When you're locked away for 6 months you can either go insane, try to escape, give up, or you can think, strategize and plan. Guess which of the options I decided to go with. Said Naruto, having had a lot of time to sort out his plans and preparations while locked away. 6 months you're the Uzumaki brat. Anko said, realizing that it was Naruto. Bilty, I am Naruto Uzumaki, with these being my associates Itsuki Uchiha, Yakumo Kurama and Karen Uzumaki. Who Dansum had also kidnapped and taken prisoner for his own purposes and who I freed when I killed him. Naruto replied, much to their further shock before Hanabi glared at him. This is your fault. You stealing the forbidden scroll and going rogue, you're the reason Dansum was able to take over. Yelled Hanabi, since Dansum had revealed Naruto's Jinchuriki status to the entire village after becoming Hokage, as well as the crimes he committed, having wanted to further turn the village against Naruto to further break him. With Ino, Tenten, Kanoka, Mogi and Lee glaring at Naruto, only for them to be forced back when Naruto narrowed his eyes at them. If you're naive enough to believe anything that decrepit old mummy said, then perhaps this was a waste of time and I should simply kill you all right now. I could even give you a demonstration of what I did to Dansum just before ending his miserable life. Said Naruto while holding out his hand as if to grab them all to absorb their chakra and Kekkei Genkai, making them tense at the chance of a fight breaking out. With Hanabi taking this as a chance to charge Naruto before jumping at him to deliver a palm strike to his chest. Her anger over seeing the one responsible for everything that happened getting the better of her, forgetting how easily he incapacitated Anko, Shino and Tenten. Resulting in the Hika suddenly finding herself wrapped in a chakra chain, suppressing her chakra and leaving her helpless. With the others soon finding themselves trapped as well by Naruto's chains, with the Uzumaki looking at them coldly. Pity. I had thought you all would be smarter than that. But since you're so eager for a demonstration, let me show you what happens to those that cross me. Naruto said before grabbing Hanabi's head before he began absorbing the majority of her chakra and her Byakugan, with the girl screaming in pain as she felt her eyes burning and her chakra being ripped away. Hanabi. Let her go. Hinata shouted, struggling against the chain to save her sister, with Naruto soon removing his hand once he took everything from her, only leaving Hanabi with enough chakra to stay alive in consciousness, while making it so she didn't have enough to do anything else that was stupid. Happily, I have what I need from her. Said Naruto before tossing Hanabi at their feet as he released the remaining resistance members, with Anko, Shino, Tenten and Ino, got ready too for a fight, while Hinata rushed to her sister to check on her, with Akamaru joining her and stood in front of the sisters, growling at Naruto. Though the moment Hanabi opened her eyes, Hinata gasped in shock and horror, getting everyone's attention. Only for the resistance members to look in shock and horror as rather than the lavender-tinted pale white eyes, Hanabi's eyes were now a plain brown color. Then Ni-sen I can't move my CH chakra, it's so weak and my eyes feel different. What happened? Hanabi said weakly, feeling scared and confused when her vision was different, even more so when she tried activating her Byakugan, only for nothing to happen. The group immediately turned towards Naruto, only to see his eyes had turned pure white, with the veins bulging on the sides of his head. What did you do to her? Demanded Hinata while glaring at Naruto, who merely smirked wickedly. If she's foolish enough to throw her life away by attacking a superior opponent, then she didn't deserve to have such powerful eyes. So I took them for myself, her chakra and her Byakugan are now mine, forever. Naruto revealed, much to their shock and horror, that he could steal Kekkei Genkai, with Hanabi taking it the worse as she shivered in realization that her ninjutsu was gone. Her Byakugan being one of the last things she had, something that had been a major part of her identity as a person and a Hika since activating it, and it's gone forever. While the others didn't dare try making a move against Naruto again, knowing he couldn't only just stop them with his chains again, but they all felt a cold shiver go down their spines as he looked at them with his new Byakugan. As if they were nothing but ants for him to step on at his leisure, seeing that he didn't even consider them threats. And why would he, given what they just saw he could do, they knew they weren't threats to him. It also made them realize how he was able to kill Dansum. If he can absorb a person's chakra and Kekkei Genkai, then they'd be dead before they could try anything. So, are there any more fools that wish to try something? Perhaps you need a more permanent example in the form of a dried up and empty husk. An extracted heart. A severed limb or two. Or perhaps I should just kill you all right now if you choose to reject the kind offer I have. Said Naruto with his chains coming out again, making the survivors freeze while shaking slightly at knowing there's nothing they'd be able to do. Please forgive her Uzumaki, but given recent events, all of us are on edge and only seeking to make sense of what's happened, even if it's by blaming someone who was probably a victim themselves. There's no reason for any of us to fight or die. Shino said, wanting to defuse the situation and avoid a fight, fully knowing the only ones who'd die would be all of them at his hands, while the whiskered boy smirked. Ah, and there it is, you all lack a purpose. Given the fact you didn't know Danzm was dead, you also aren't aware that Konoha has been destroyed from a joint venture between Suna and Orochimaru, while the rest of the nations are now most likely preparing for war due to the power vacuum. And you all would be caught in the middle if you were discovered. Said Naruto, with the resistance survivors being horrified to know that their home was also destroyed, meaning that even if Danzm is dead, they couldn't even have a home to return to anymore. Damn that snake, damn him to the deepest pit of hell. Thought Anko while cursing her former teacher, wishing for nothing more than the chance to hunt him down and kill him, even if she died in the end. But she couldn't sense the Takebetsu Jinin knew that she couldn't abandon the kids, with her being responsible for them, after managing to get them away from the resistance being massacred. This brings me to why I chose to track you all down in the first place. I wish to extend an offer to you all to join us in the chance to finally put an end to things once and for all. To destroy the entire shinobi system. Naruto revealed, shocking them even further, with the survivors looking at him in disbelief. You apparently went insane while locked up if you think that's possible. You just said the other villages are preparing for war and now you want to declare war on not only them, but all of the elemental nations. You and what army? And why the hell would we become your slaves if we sure as hell weren't going to be Danzm's? Anko said, now thinking Naruto was simply crazy if he thought they'd ever join him. Only for them to once again be shocked when Naruto activated his Manjukam Sharingan and channeled chakra into the ground, causing small roots to appear. Who needs an army when all that's needed is a group skilled and powerful enough to get the job done? And with this power that I got from Danzm, my power has no limit, my potential is infinite. As you can see from the parting gifts I took from the Warhawk. 2 of the most powerful Kekkei Genkai in the world. Plus a third one I gained not too long ago, and now a 4th with the Byakugan. And as I said, I learned a lot while imprisoned, even more with what we took from Danzm's base before escaping. Giving me plenty of time and information to plan and prepare. Said Naruto, as the survivors looked at him in shock. And you got one thing wrong, I don't intend to declare war on the elemental nations, I intend to burn it to the ground to build a new empire, one dominant power under my control. Naruto said with a dark grin that sent shivers down all their spines. But of course, if that's not good enough to convince you, then how about revenge? Revenge against the one that sold you out to Danzm, the one who got your friends and comrades butchered. Added Naruto, causing the survivors to stiffen at remembering who had betrayed them. Niji Haika. They could still remember how he appeared at camp, joined by dozens and dozens of rude Anbu that began killing everyone. All of them remembering what they'd lost and everyone that had been killed thanks to his actions. Hinata and Shino remembering how Niji had tried targeting the former specifically, with Hinata having tried getting through to her cousin, only for him to move to kill her. The Haika girl only being spared by Kiba sacrificing himself to get her out of the way. While their Jinin sensei, Kuranaiki, sacrificed her life to give them a chance to escape. Only being able to save Hanabi in the process while everyone else was being killed. With Akamaru whining sadly at remembering his now dead partner and friend, having gone with Hinata and Shino to protect them like Kiba would have wanted him to do. Lee and Tenten got angry at remembering Niji's betrayal, not believing their teammate would really turn his back on them like that. With Lee being angry and bitter as he had tried to get through to Niji, still wanting to believe they were friends and comrades. Only for him to instead leave him to be attacked by rude Anbu, with his legs being permanently crippled. He'd only been able to escape thanks to Tenten and Guy giving his life to let them get away. Ino shivered in fear and self-loathing at how she'd frozen up during the attack, forcing Shikamaru and Shinji to protect her, while she stood by and did nothing as they were killed. She had only been able to get away because of Anko arriving to save her from being killed. While Kanoka and Mogi were saddened and angered since they'd been with the resistance after Asuma was able to smuggle them out of Konoha, along with their friend Yuden. Not wanting anything to happen to his niece and her friends, given he already knew he was a dead man when Danzm became Hokage. With the 3 children having tried running to hide, only for Root to arrive, the 2 girls having been horrified and devastated when Yuden had been mercilessly cut down in front of them. Having only been saved by other resistance members getting the Root members' attention, with Anko soon arriving and grabbing them as well. And Anko, she'd actually been sorely tempted to use her curse mark just as a chance to try and make difference. That it'd give her the power to help her comrades. But instead, she'd simply been told to run while saving anyone she could, which unfortunately was barely anyone. With her anger, sadness and hatred towards Danzm, the traitorous Haika and herself, for not doing anything more to help, only growing each day. Where is he? demanded Hinata, now wanting nothing more than to make Niji suffer for what he's done and everyone they lost because of him. I don't know his exact location, but he's still alive, that I'm sure of. Given that once he learned Danzm was dead, he'd have no obligations to stay in Konoha and run like the traitorous coward he is. He's likely laying low, not wanting to draw attention to himself. After all, he's an unbranded Haika that's all alone with no village, no allies, nothing except himself. Making him a very tempting target for any village to get their hands on. But you can join me and you'll get the chance to find him to get your revenge, along with the chance to destroy the system that caused all this. After all, is it not the shinobi system that helped create a person like Danzm and those like him? Who do anything for more power, not caring who they kill and what lives therein to get it? Said Naruto, seeing most of them look tempted at the offer. And what makes you all any different? You're planning to destroy one system and replace it with another, where you're in charge. While stealing the chakra and Kekkei Genkai of anyone who doesn't agree with you and taking it all for yourself. How are you different from Danzm and everyone else like him? Demanded Tenten, only for Naruto to give a chilling smile. Because I have no illusions of being the good guy. Naruto answered, making them all look at him in surprise. The shinobi system started with Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha, first building Konoha as a place where children didn't have to grow up to kill each other or die young. Then other villages began appearing, with the Shadaime having the brilliant idea to capture the Bijk and hand them out like trophies in an vain attempt to create balance. Only for it to then lead into the creation of the Jinchuriki, human weapons to be used by the hidden villages and unleashed on their enemies, while being treated like the very beasts they contain for the most part. All while being expected to just take the abuse unless they want to suffer a slow, agonizing death by having their Bijk extracted and placed in a more passive and controllable vessel. Since then, 3 wars have been fought with another one now currently on the way, and why is that? Because everyone believes they're the hero, the protector, defending their home and villages from threats and doing everything they can to strengthen them. Even Danzm had this mindset, believing everything he did was for the good of Konoha, when really it was for his own benefit. Explained Naruto as he gained a malicious smile. That's where I differ from them, I don't pretend to be the hero, no I'm the villain, the monster they'll fear. When ninja arrive to defend the village and the people feel safe, they'll feel hope that everything will be okay now that they are here to save them. When they see me arrive, that same hope will be ripped away, the feeling of safety will vanish, all they will feel is utter despair and dread because I have arrived. I want them all to look upon my symbol and know that to challenge me is to court death. Naruto said as he looked at their shocked, wary and uneasy expressions, while Satsuki, Yakumo and Karen looked at the Jinchuriki in amazement at how he spoke. All feeling any doubts they may have had about joining Naruto be wiped away, the 3 now fully believing he's going to achieve his goal. And anyone foolish enough to get in his way really would be walking to their own deaths. Now then, your answer. Join me to get revenge, or stay here to rot in this hole in the ground until you're discovered. Said Naruto, though knowing if they rejected his offer, he'd absorb their chakra and Kekkei Genkai, then proceed to kill them, or perhaps lock them away to see if they'd prove useful later on. For a few moments, the resistant survivors exchanged uneasy looks, none of them really sure what they were supposed to do. Before, surprisingly, Kanoka and Mogi were the ones to walk up to Naruto first. I want revenge on that bastard Niji, as well as the system that helped make Danzm and got my grandpa, Uncle and Yuden killed, as well as those that destroyed my home. Said Kanoka with a determined scowl on her face, with the orange tea nodding in agreement. So do I, everything we cared about was taken away and now we want to take something ourselves. Mogi added, with Naruto smirking at this before looking at Hinata and Hanabi. Why would we join you? You attacked me, STST stole my BB by Byakugan. Why would we ever think to join someone like you? Hanabi shouted, still shaken over the loss of her eyes, only to shiver and retreat back to her sister when Naruto looked at her with narrowed eyes. And whose fault is that? Who had a foolish idea to try and attack me? You did. You believed that you could attack me and there wouldn't be any consequences. Now you wish spit on the mercy I gave you by sparing your life, when I can just as easily retract that mercy if you're so eager to die. Said Naruto, holding out his hand towards her, making the sisters freeze with Hinata wrapping her arms around Hanabi to shield her. Only to feel some relief when Naruto pulled his hand back with a dark smirk on his face. But to show you I am rewarding to those that join me. Should you prove your loyalty to me, I will return your Byakugan to you. Naruto said, much to their shock with Hanabi feeling a spark of hope that she could get her ninjutsu back. You can really do that? Why? Questioned a suspicious Hinata, since why would he return Hanabi's Byakugan when he could simply keep it for himself? I can and will, but only after you've proven your loyalty. As for why there is still another Byakugan I can take from your traitorous cousin. Replied Naruto, making them stiffen while realizing he was right. As far as they knew, Hinata, Hanabi and Niji were the only members of the Haika clan left in the world, and Niji didn't have the caged bird seal anymore. So his Byakugan could be stolen just like Hanabi's had been. Imagine it, he has no allies, no help, no village, no protection, not even the freedom he betrayed you all for. The only thing he has left is his pride and Byakugan. By taking away the latter, you take away the former, and he will be left with nothing. You can watch as he breaks down at realizing in his final moments, he has truly lost everything he cares about. Wouldn't that be so much more satisfying than simply ending his life? Naruto said temptingly, seeing the dark expressions on Hinata's, Hanabi's and Lee's faces. If you'll really return my Byakugan, then I'll swear my loyalty to you for the rest of my life," said Hanabi, moving away from her sister and bowing to Naruto, wanting the chance to get revenge on Niji and make him suffer by losing his Byakugan, along with reclaiming her own. "If it means you'll return Hanabi's Byakugan and give us a chance to find Niji and make him suffer, I'll join as well," Hinata said, eager for the chance to watch Niji break down at losing everything. "Of course, I'm a man of my word after all," replied Naruto before looking at Lee, who looked very tempted to accept the offer. "Will you really make him suffer?" questioned Lee, wanting to know if he joins that Niji will be beaten, broken and empty when he dies. "Him and everyone else that stands in our way," Naruto stated, with the crippled boy rolling himself forward, much to Tenten's disbelief. "Lee? You can't be serious about joining this psycho," said Tenten, still having doubts about joining Naruto, even with the temptation of getting revenge on Niji, only to see Lee look at her with a scowl on his face. "Niji took my legs, my dream and Gai-sensei away from us. Even if I can't do anything personally, I want to see him die like the pathetic traitor he is," Lee said bitterly, not caring if he's joining forces with someone who could be the literal devil himself, since he had nothing left to lose and everything to gain. "Wonderful, and I'm sure we can do something about your legs, in time. After all, I wouldn't deprive someone of their chance at revenge," said Naruto, knowing Lee would be useless without his legs, something they'll look into fixing, with Shino and Akamaru being the next to step forward. "While I'm hesitant in joining, I believe this is the most logical decision. To remain here would only lead to us growing complacent and weak, making us easier targets to capture should Shangri-La be discovered. And if we were to leave, we would be hunted down for the rest of our lives for our knowledge in Kekkei Genkai," Shino said, knowing this was really their only choice if it meant surviving, with Akamaru giving a bark in agreement. "And you think joining with him is the best choice?" Anko demanded, seeing Naruto as no different than Dan's Orochimaru, probably even worse. "Better to stand at the right hand of the devil than to be in his path," said Shino, aware if they weren't with Naruto, then they were his enemies whether they actually went against him or not. The whiskered blonde smirked at this, before looking at Anko, Tenten and Ino, seeing they were the most reluctant. Knowing that they'll either join willingly or he'll simply use Kodomatsukami to have them join as future experiments. "Fine, better than staying here forever or being captured," Tenten said, walking to join the others, not seeing any other option they had at the moment and figured she might as well get revenge on Niji too. If I can get revenge, then I'll join as well," Ino said while stepping forward as well, still looking unsure but also wanting to get revenge like the others. Anko looked at them with wide eyes, not expecting them to really join Naruto, given what he plans to do and the chance they could be killed, only to let out a sigh and step forward. "Fuck it, I have nothing left to lose, and I guess revenge would be nice," said Anko, knowing they really didn't have a choice, they had nothing left but the chance at revenge. "Glad to have you all aboard. Now let's go, we still have much to do and prepare for," Naruto said before turning around and exiting the house, with everyone following behind him, all of them unseen by the unknowing residents of Shangri-La. Time skip 3 months. After managing to recruit the resistant survivors, with some needing more convincing than others, Naruto and his growing group had gone back to training and laying low. Though despite the survivors having joined them, Naruto knew not to reveal everything they had, such as the Forbidden Scroll. Having made sure to keep it a secret at least until they proved their loyalty and he rewarded them accordingly. While having them merely work on what they knew and could improve on, with Hanabi being forced to build her style from the ground up with the loss of her Byakugan. Given she only knew the Jiken, she had to learn an entirely new style and techniques. With Lee being told to continue training his upper body, as well he couldn't use his legs, that didn't mean he should let himself get weak from not training. As for Satsuki, Karen, Yakumo and Naruto himself, they'd looked within the Forbidden Scroll again. Copying down several jutsu, techniques and exercises for themselves to lessen the chance of the others discovering it. With Karen making a list of all the Fukinjutsu and medical ninjutsu, with the latter being for herself and Yakumo to use, with the Kurama heiress copying down all the Jinjutsu. Whereas Satsuki copied down all the fire-style ninjutsu, while Naruto copied down everything from Mokuten, the Byakugan and the Sharingan. Along with several other techniques he saw that he believed would prove useful, such as Kugutsu. Though one jutsu that they found that would be incredibly useful to all of them was the Shadow Clone Jutsu, which allowed the user to create solid clones. With it being when they dispelled, the clones would transfer everything they learned back to the original, making it a very useful training tool. But the jutsu also required a large amount of chakra to use, as the user's chakra was divided amongst all the clones evenly. With only Naruto and Karen being able to effectively use it, given their Uzumaki heritage providing them larger chakra reserves, plus his Jinchuriki status also made his reserves even bigger. Satsuki was able to make a few clones, but not many, thanks to her own above-average chakra reserves. While Yakumo wasn't able to use the Shadow Clone Jutsu effectively, which while annoying the brunette, she also didn't mind waiting until she was stronger to learn it. After learning the Shadow Clone Jutsu, Naruto had begun creating 70 Shadow Clones each day, dedicating 10 each to mastering his 4 Kekkei Genkai, 10 to learning the new jutsu and techniques he copied down, 10 to create new jutsu, with the last 10 working on chakra control and elemental manipulation. Now after 3 months of training, Naruto was ready to see how far his training with Shadow Clones have come, with him standing in a large open clearing. Wood style. Nativity of a sea of trees. Naruto said while going through the hand signs before dozens of trees began growing out of the ground, until soon he was standing in a forest of his own creation. Holding up his hand up, Naruto channeled a large amount of chakra into his hand before expelling it from his palm. The result being a powerful repulsive force that ripped several trees out of the ground and sent them flying into the air. Now lowering his hand, the Jinchuriki then created a dark purple orb of chakra, with several wide orbital rings forming around it that soon aligned together. Spiraling ring. Said Naruto before expelling chakra from his palm and sending the ring flying through the air, impacting one of the trees and triggering an explosion that consumed all the ones in the air. It's good, but needs to be stronger. Naruto muttered, wanting all his jutsu to be powerful enough to leave a permanent reminder on anyone who sees them and knows how powerful he is. Turning around to return to the others, Naruto began going through one-handed hand signs. Mud style. Bottomless mud hole. Said Naruto as the ground beneath the forest he created turned into a gigantic mud pit, causing the trees to slowly start sinking into the ground. While hand emerged from the sides of the pit and started pulling the trees down much faster. It wasn't long before the created forest was completely gone, leaving no trace it was even there. With the Uzumaki smirking, knowing anyone caught in the pit wouldn't be able to escape, no matter how hard they tried. Naruto also wondered about the progress his other clones were making in the tasks he gave them. The Uzumaki had also begun sending out dozens of disguised clones throughout the elemental nations to start building up his power base. Along with searching for anything that'd prove useful to him and also spreading rumors about him, though not about Naruto himself. Even something else Naruto had learned was that ninja and the hidden villages didn't fear people. People they could hate, people they could kill. It was the unknown they feared, things they didn't understand or could control. Which is why Naruto was having his clones use different names and aliases when spreading rumors about him in the criminal underworld. As well as making some examples to lend credence to the rumors and help build up his image as an unknown shadow figure. As for the name Naruto had decided to take to go with his new persona, it was also the name he came up with for the power Dansum had given him. A power that made it so he could take everyone's power for himself. And if they think my clones are bad, wait until they meet the real all for one. Thought Naruto with a wicked smile, knowing when the time comes, they'll get to experience true despair and hopelessness. But Satsuki. Meanwhile, Satsuki was getting her own training done, with it going much quicker thanks to being able to use the Shadow Clone Jutsu. Though at the moment, Satsuki was only able to make 4 Shadow Clones, which while not being a lot, her Sharingan helped make up for the lack of numbers. Allowing her to perfectly mimic jutsu and hand signs her clones learned just by looking at them, lowering the time it'd take to get them down. Combined with the memory feedback, the Uchiha is able to learn several jutsu and start mastering them in only a few days. This also gave Satsuki time to focus on improving her other abilities when she wasn't learning more fire-style ninjutsu. Such as improving her Taijutsu and reaction time by having her clones attack her with the intent to kill her. Something that is rather easy to do since Satsuki already wanted to kill a lot of people, it was easy for her clones to just picture those people when attacking her. And while it was painful, it did help her in learning to fight multiple opponents and improving her Sharingan. Along with training with Yakumo to get better at identifying and spotting Jinjutsu, the different ways they can be cast, and learning to instinctually dispel them. Knowing Itachi excelled at Jinjutsu, Satsuki wanted to take away one of his weapons for when she tracks him down. With her also working on making her fire-style ninjutsu as strong as it can be, then making them even stronger by further mastering her fire affinity. While also looking into ways to make her flames stronger, knowing that wind-style ninjutsu makes them grow more powerful. And while the Uchiha would like to learn wind-style ninjutsu as well, she wanted to focus on fire-style for the time being. Instead, Satsuki thought of a different way to incorporate wind chakra into her flames, knowing that certain hand signs are aligned with different elements. With the tiger hand sign being affiliated with fire-style ninjutsu, and the bird hand sign was associated with wind-style ninjutsu. Leading the Ravenet to watch her clones perform all the hand signs for her fire-style ninjutsu with her Sharingan. Wanting to perfectly memorize each of them and see where she'd be able to incorporate the bird hand sign. Now Satsuki was ready to put her theory to the test and see if she'd be able to enhance her fire-style ninjutsu with wind chakra by testing it out on a decent-sized boulder to see how hot the fire would burn. Taking a deep breath, Satsuki instantly began going through hand signs for the grand fireball, adding in the bird hand sign just before the tiger hand sign. Fire style. Grand fireball jutsu. Satsuki shouted before cupping her hand in front of her mouth and aiming at the boulder. Though rather than the normal orange flames, or even more intense ones, coming from her mouth. What came was instead a raging inferno of blue fire that impacted the boulder. The sight shocking Satsuki, who was forced to narrow her eyes from how bright the flames were burning. Only to soon be forced to stop the jutsu when the heat actually started burning her. Panting and gasping for air, the Ravenet quickly unsealed a water bottle and drank half of it before pouring the other half of her head to cool off. But despite nearly burning herself, Satsuki couldn't keep the smirk off her face that it actually worked. I've never made fire that hot before, nor had I been close to actually being burned by it in a long time. Thought Satsuki, knowing the last time she burned herself was when she was first learning the Grand Fireball Jutsu. Though it definitely needs some work, and I need to start working on getting used to the higher temperatures to not burn myself in a fight. Even better, once I'm able to successfully combine wind chakra with my fire-style ninjutsu, what effects will other elements have on it? Satsuki thought, knowing she's gotten plenty of new ways to improve her fire. Looking at the boulder to see the effect her flames had on it, the Uchiha's eyes widened in shock when she saw the boulder wasn't only glowing red hot, but part of it was actually melted. The sight soon bringing a dark smile to her face, knowing they'll only get stronger with the more training she does. And soon, you'll be nothing but fuel for my flames to help burn this world down, Itachi. Thought Satsuki, imagining the sight of Itachi's burning body when she gets her hands on him. With Yakumo and Karen. Karen, remind me again why we're doing this. Yakumo asked as she placed a genjutsu over several animals, allowing Karen to grab them with her chakra chains and seal them away in special storage scrolls. Because I need test subjects to help improve my medical ninjutsu and learning more about how living creatures work. But more than that, with Naruto's use of All for One, his ability to take chakra, Kekkei Genkai, as well as other abilities that people have and use them for himself, it made me think. Why can't I do the same? Why can't I take the special traits of animals and combine them together, a rabbit's ability to jump, a bear's strength, a reptile's regeneration, a fish's ability to breathe underwater. Then combine them all together into something stronger and more useful. Now imagine all that but on people. Karen explained with an excited smile on her face, while Yakumo nodded slowly. And that's what you're hoping to do to the kid in green, Lee, to give him his legs back? Said Yakumo rhetorically, with the Redeed nodding in response. Yep, but I won't just make him useful, I'll be making him better. Whether he retains his ability to think for himself, replied Karen before trailing off, given Naruto only cared about Lee's ability to fight, kill and follow orders. As long as she could do that, then he doesn't care if she turns him into a mindless killing machine, as long as it was loyal. The fact you can say all that with a straight face, I feel like the normal reaction is to be terrified. Yakumo stated, with Karen merely giving a shrug. Naruto asked for results, I plan to get them for him. Doesn't matter to me who or what has to die or be broken to get them. Said Karen, knowing she sounds rather twisted and disturbed, but given what happened to her mother and herself, she became rather twisted. Plus, once her experiments were successful, she hoped to turn everyone in Kusagakure into more test subjects to experiment on, starting with Samsui. The Redeed only being able to smile wickedly at the getting the chance to pay him and the rest of Kusa back for what they did to her and her mother. Even better, if they survive and become loyal monsters, I'll have them attack Kusa and kill everyone, then tear the village down until only rubble is left. Ooh, I wonder if I'll be able to find a way to keep their minds intact so they know what they're doing. That would be fun. Thought a giddy Karen before she and Yakumo went back to collecting animals for her experiments. Time skip 3 months. Lee watched as Hanabi practiced the movements of her new fighting styles, with the young girl having come to him to learn new styles, given his knowledge on Taijutsu. As while Lee focused only on the Genken, Guy had also taught and told him about several other Taijutsu styles, ones he could fall back on. In the event he met an opponent that could counter the Genken. With Hanabi having asked if he had any styles that she could learn in place of her Jiken. The former genin having told her about the scorpion style and the praying mantis style, both of which focused on speed, evasion, and powerful strikes to take opponents down. Seeing them as styles perfectly suited for Hanabi to learn, with how similar they were to the Jiken. Plus the scorpion style is most effective when used with curved blades called scorpion claws, due to them resembling half of a scorpion's pincer. Which would allow Hanabi to further branch out and learn Kenjutsu as well. It also gave Lee some measure of comfort to be able to pass the knowledge he got from Guy, given he's now unable to effectively use it himself. Especially with seeing how Hanabi had been doing rather well with her training, katas, and exercises to build up the necessary strength to use her styles. You seem to be a rather effective teacher. But I suppose that's to be expected when one has been trained by one of the strongest Jujutsu specialists in the world. Stated Naruto, making Lee tense slightly, something all the survivors have begun doing whenever he appeared, still getting used to his growing dark presence. The green-wearing boy turning in his chair to see Naruto and Satsuki standing behind him, watching Hanabi's training before looking at him. Thank you Naruto-sama, though I'm nowhere near the instructor Guy-sensei was, I still wish to do my part. Lee replied, another thing the survivors learned is to refer to Naruto with proper respect as their superior, given he didn't fully trust them yet as they still had to prove their loyalty. Yet you're showing to effectively train a Haiku in learning two completely new styles, even if they're similar to the Jiken, and she's still a relatively blank slate. It's still impressive, and perhaps you'd be able to also give us some advice on improving our own Taijutsu training as well. Satsuki said, given both she and Naruto didn't really have time to work on their Taijutsu, even with her prior knowledge. I suppose I could give you some advice on how to improve your Taijutsu. Are you looking for any specific style or form you want? Questioned Lee, not expecting them to actually come to him for insight on improving their training. Little movement, fast and lethal strikes, and overpowering strength. Naruto said, wanting his Taijutsu to be where he doesn't have to move much to let his enemies come to him and kill them once they're close enough before they can react. Both as a statement of what he can do and to not have to reveal too much. After all, being able to kill without moving with only a few precise hits, all while looking like he isn't even trying, will go a long way in letting people imagine what he can do if he does try. Something that lets me move fast, deliver quick crushing blows to kill or incapacitate, and able to incorporate my Sharingan into it. Said Satsuki, preferring a style that let her move around faster than her opponents can see, then deliver crippling injuries as right now, everyone she wanted to kill them painfully, while making it hurt as much as possible. I see. Well for you Naruto-sama, I suggest learning more about the human body to find the best places to strike and deal the most damage, as well as working on your reaction time and being able to instinctual strike opponents when they get near. Perhaps also a weapon that's unnoticeable, making it seem like people would simply die when they get near you. Well for you Satsuki, I think incorporating the Genken into your current style will give you the results you want. Lee said, giving them the best advice that he could, with Naruto and Satsuki humming in thought before they both nodded. You have our thanks for the advice, Lee, we'll be sure to alter our training to better improve our Taijutsu. Said Naruto, with Lee nodding in response. I'm glad I could be of assistance, and I'll be sure to help Satsuki with the Genken when I'm not helping Hanabi. Replied Lee, making the Uzumaki smirk. I'm happy to hear that. Just one more thing, what exactly would you give to have your legs back? Naruto said, stepping closer to Lee and looking down at him, his eyes glowing slightly, making the boy gulp as he considered the question. What would I give to have my legs back? Anything, I would give anything if it meant I would be healed and able to fight once again. Lee said, knowing there isn't anything he wouldn't do to be fully healed, while Naruto's smirk gained a sinister edge. Good answer, I want you to remember it when the time comes. Said Naruto before he and Satsuki took their leave, with Lee watching them go with wide eyes. Later with Hinata and Hanabi. How was your training? Hinata asked while looking at her sister after she arrived from finishing her training with Lee for the day. It went well, I'm getting much better at building up the strength to use the mantis style. Lee said I'll be able to shatter wood with just a finger once I've mastered it. Replied Hanabi with a proud smile, starting to feel more like herself after losing her Byakugan, making Hinata smile slightly, glad that her sister was feeling better before turning serious. Are you alright? Really alright with everything? Hinata asked, having been asking her sister that every day since she lost her Byakugan, still worried she'd suddenly have a mental breakdown. Yes, I'm fine Nisan, really. Well it still hurts not having my Byakugan, but I have to accept it's my own fault that it's gone. Now all I can do is train to grow stronger, to prove my loyalty and be able to get it back. And I guess in a way, it's a blessing to not rely on the Byakugan in Jiken anymore. Since I now have to branch out and adapt to not having it, which will be helpful when we finally find him. Hanabi said darkly, eager for when they find Niji and she can show him everything she's learned. Hinata nodded in agreement, having been working on her own surprises for when they find Niji, wanting him to see what the failure can do now. Wanting to see the confusion, fear and hopelessness on his face when they beat him down, showing him who the real weak one is. "You were Kurenai's student, weren't you?" stated Yakumo, getting the sisters' attention as they saw the brunette standing behind them with a neutral expression, making Hinata tense and stand up. "Yes, I was Kurenai-sensei's student, along with Shino." "How do you know her?" Hinata asked, making Yakumo scoff. "Figures she'd choose to forget me." Yakumo muttered bitterly, not surprised that Kurenai didn't say anything about her to her team, figuring she didn't want anyone to know about her dirty little secret. "What's that supposed to mean?" demanded Hinata, refusing to let her speak ill of her dead teacher. "None of your concern. Just tell me one thing, as I've just imagined all the different ways it could have happened, but I have to know, did she suffer before she died?" questioned Yakumo, wanting to know if Kurenai was in pain when she was killed, with Hinata glaring at her in anger. "Don't say anything about Kurenai again," or Hinata said, only for Yakumo to return the glare, her eyes turning a solid dark purple, while her teeth sharpened. "Or what?" retorted Yakumo, her voice sounding deep and demonic, making Hinata take a step back in surprise before Yakumo's features returned to normal. "I'll talk about her however I want, given everything she took from me, now even taking my chance to pay her back. The least I can do is imagine all the painful ways her life was ended," Yakumo said, making the brunette clench her fists but didn't try anything. "What are you talking about? Kurenai was a kind and caring person who cared about me, Shino and Kiba. She even gave her life so we could escape," said Hinata, making the Kurama era scoff. "Maybe to you three, but to me the only thing she was a liar, a traitor and a thief. She never told you I was her student before she even met any of you, as my Kekkei Genkai allowed me to create powerful genjutsu, so it only made sense my sensei was also skilled in genjutsu. But unfortunately, that was all I had, as I was born with a weak body that prevented me from becoming a ninja, but I didn't let stop me, though Kurenai had other ideas. She tried pushing me to become something else, to choose a different path in life, she even refused to train me. I didn't quit though, refusing to give up my dream, only now I wanted to spite her, to show her who the real genjutsu mistress was. Then she took that away from me too. She put a seal on me, sealing my Kekkei Genkai away on the order of the Sandaime Hokage, ripping my dream away from me," said Yakumo, much to Hinata's shock to hear Kurenai did something like that. "That's not the best part though, oh no. The truth was the seal was meant to lock away another personality in my head, the Ido, something that only cared about destruction. It even burned down my home and killed my parents. But did Kurenai or the Hokage tell me this? No. They let me believe they killed my parents to try and kill me, then planned to kill me if I became uncontrollable, leaving me to live in fear that any day I would be killed. But you wanna know the funniest part, I only learned all this from Dansm. The same bastard who planned to turn me into a weapon and a breeding factory to create a unit of super soldiers that can create lifelike genjutsu. He was the one that told me the truth over my own mentor, and he only did it to break me. He even put a new seal on me, one that did let me use my Kekkei Genkai, but also forcefully merged the Ido with me. After all, why get rid of a monster bent on destruction when he could just direct it towards his enemies?" Yakumo said, her features changing again, a result of Dansm forcefully merging the Ido with her, which happens whenever she loses control of her emotions, before she calmed down and glared at Hinata. "So yes, I'll talk about Kurenai however I damn well want, because she took everything from me and then didn't even bother telling me the truth. And for that, I hope she got to feel the same pain I felt when she died," said Yakumo coldly before turning to leave. "Why did you join Naruto then? Kurenai's dead, the Sandaime is dead, Dansm's dead, everyone you'd want revenge on is dead. Why did you join Naruto?" Hinata said, wanting to know why Yakumo joined Naruto when anyone she'd want to kill is dead, making the brunette stop and turn to her. "You mean besides the fact he freed me and has so far been the best mentor I've had in that he's actually helping me get stronger? It's because I support and agree with his goal. The ninja system had its chance to succeed the warring states period and create peace, but look at how well that's turned out. Look at all the wars that have happened, the war that'll be starting soon even without us, how long until there's no one left alive to kill each other? Or until the entire world's reduced to a wasteland? The ninja era had its time, but now it's time for it to end. But truthfully, for me personally I want to be the one inflicting pain for once. And I have so much to give. After all, aren't you the same? You want to find your cousin to make him feel the same pain you both do, so don't try acting like you're better. Like Naruto said, we don't have illusions about being heroes," said Yakumo as her features slowly became more demonic, with a malicious grin on her face before she returned to normal. "I'm not denying anything or pretending to be something I'm not. I don't know what I even want anymore, only that I'm going to make Niji pay and suffer," Hinata stated after a few moments. "And I doubt it means much, but I'm sorry that happened to you." Both what Kurenai and the Hokage did to you, then being captured by Dansm," added Hinata, knowing she couldn't defend Kurenai's actions against Yakumo, with the brunette merely looking at her with a raised brow. "Save your sympathies, they won't do anyone any good. But they're noted. And I suppose we have a lot in common, we all lost everything we cared about, while now only being left with anger, rage and vengeance against someone. Well, you and I know what it's like to lose something that's part of us," Yakumo said while looking at Hinata before turning to Hanabi, knowing they were similar to each other after everything that's happened. This surprised the sisters, before they nodded since Yakumo did have a point about them being similar. Would you be able to help us with ninjutsu?" Hanabi asked since it never hurt to expand their skills beyond Taijutsu, with the Kurama heiress looking at her before turning to Hinata who gave a shrug. "I suppose since I'm already helping Satsuki in casting and dispelling them. But don't expect me to wait since I train on my own time, whether you show up or not isn't my concern. You want to learn Jinjutsu, then you'll find time to learn it," replied Yakumo, with both sisters nodding and understanding. Time skipped 3 months. Naruto and Karen walked through a large lab, looking over all the equipment within, while around them were a few unconscious bodies of the medic nin that had been here. The Jinchuriki's clones having discovered this laboratory a week ago, on an island off the coast of the Land of Waters, before learning it was one of Orochimaru's hideouts. His interest having been piqued at learning of all the medical equipment that was within the lab, knowing it'd go a long way in Karen's experiments. Especially with the human test subjects within she could use, leading to the two setting out for the island to take it for themselves. With it not taking them long to incapacitate everyone within, before they began looking over all the equipment, with the redeeded Uzumaki feeling like a kid in a candy store. "This is certainly an impressive setup, I'm sure all this will prove useful in the coming days," Naruto stated, looking in one of the rooms that was filled with ceiling-length shelves stacked full of jarred experiments, books, scrolls, crates and tools. "Useful? This isn't just useful. This will be exactly what I need to take my experiments to the next level. This especially will prove valuable," said Karen while looking at a machine in the center of the room, recognizing it as a blood extraction machine, something she'll be able to transfuse blood into another person. But knew she'll need to make some modifications to it to better suit her purposes and inject blood into multiple subjects at a time. "Good, I look forward to seeing the first successful batch of human-based Nomu soon," said Naruto, having decided to call Karen's experiments Nomu, given that after the experiments, if they survived, they really became mindless killing machines who only knew how to follow orders. Just the kind of fighting force he wanted, one entirely loyal, while also being effective killers that couldn't be interrogated or tortured for information. Plus if one Nomu were to be captured, they planned to place explosive seals into all of them, powerful enough to kill the Nomu and anyone nearby. Ensuring none of their secrets could be discovered or recreated. "I'll do my best, as long as you make sure to pass along any useful test subjects, otherwise all you'll be getting is a bunch of muscle-bound attack dogs," Karen replied since while she can infuse animal DNA into humans to give them unique abilities and traits, it'll only do so much in making stronger Nomu. Naruto merely nodded in response, since he'd have to at least let Karen take some Kekkei Genkai users they encounter for her experiments. Though hopefully they could find a way to somehow replicate the Kekkei Genkai he takes, so she can have copies to use while he'll have the originals. Though Naruto's head suddenly snapped in a random direction, getting Karen's attention. "Did one of your clones dispel?" questioned Karen, knowing that usually only happened after a clone dispels and he gets the information it's sent. "Yes, how would you like another island lab? One dedicated to a very similar experiment as our own. Complete with a sleeping Nomu-like creature filled with DNA," Naruto said with a smirk before looking at Karen, who had an excited and dark gleam in her eyes. "With resistant survivors." Meanwhile, the resistant survivors all sat together in their current hideout, all of them remaining silent with there being a noticeable tense air around them. With Hinata, Hanabi, Kanoka, Mogi, Shino, Akamaru and Lee all seemed to be sitting a little ways away from Anko, Ino, and Tenten. Given the fact they joined Naruto without much issue, while the latter three still had their doubts. Though were at least smart enough to only talk about them when Naruto and the girls weren't around to hear them. "Okay, seriously, we need to think of something to do," Anko said in frustration, getting tired of how they were basically just waiting for the Jinchuriki to declare war on the entire world and destroy everything they know. "I was under the impression there was already a plan, find Niji, kill Niji," said Hinata like it was obvious. "And then what? You think that's going to solve our other problems? We could find him ourselves, instead we're letting that kid lead us around and don't think for 1 second that he's not going to hold that over all our heads. That we were only able to find that little traitor thanks to him," said Anko, knowing that if they find and kill Niji because of Naruto, then that'll just further tighten the nooses he has around all their necks. "So? Who cares how it happens, as long as we get revenge for him betraying us and getting everyone else killed," Mogi said, not caring how they find Niji, only that they do. Mogi, you're just a little girl. You, Kanoka and Hanabi are still much younger than us, so you still don't really understand what joining him will do. Ino said, only for the three to glare at her. We're not kids, we stopped being that after that bastard got our friends killed and when the mummy killed my grandfather and uncle. At least with Master, we'll get revenge and he's helping us get stronger. Retorted Kanoka, with Mogi nodding in agreement. Given that when it was discovered that Mogi, shockingly, had the Mokuton, Naruto had started taking a personal interest in her training. And given he's the only one who could really help her master it, there was nothing Anko could do to stop him from training and influencing her. Bulsatsuki had given Kanoka some help on mastering her fire affinity and incorporating her wind affinity into it after she'd mastered her fire affinity and developed her own wind affinity, while also mastering her elemental shifting, as she's come to call it. Drawing both girls further into their influence and way of thinking, much to the Takebetsujimin's dismay. Would you stop calling him Master Osama or even that stupid name he gave himself? Seriously, what kind of name is All for One, anyway? Tenten said while shaking her head, thinking the name was rather stupid. The kind people are starting to fear. I have sent my insects out occasionally to keep myself updated on what's happening, and it's rather disconcerting. Everywhere we go, I have heard rumors about a crime boss whose growing influence in the criminal underworld is spreading each day, along with the examples he's made of those that cross him. Yet no one has ever seen him in person, only hearing of him and feeling his influence through his followers. Some don't even think he's real, but that doesn't stop the fear that's induced when they hear the name All for One. Shino explained, making them all look at him in shock and nervousness. Now just imagine that fear being multiplied when they learn All for One is very real and doesn't know the meaning of the word mercy. Shino questioned rhetorically, with Anko soon letting out a sarcastic laughter. And that's the person we decided to join. Fucking great. And what do you think is going to happen when the hidden villages learn of this and decide to come at us with everything they've got? Anko said, believing they were either going to die or, if Naruto's plan somehow succeeded, they'd really be no different than Danzm and everyone else like him. We were dead anyway in Shangri-La, it was just going a lot slower. At least now we're doing something instead of sitting around waiting to be found and killed, or worse. More than that, we can get revenge and make it so we never have to run again. If doing that means watching the world burn, so be it. Everything we care about is already gone anyway. Said Hanabi with a shrug. We at least still had our principles, honor, kindness and humanity. Going through with this plan means we'll lose all of that and more. Tenten retorted. And where did any of that get us? We had to run from our own home, we were betrayed by our own teammate, we all lost people we cared about. I lost my legs, and we were forced to hide away just waiting for the day we were found, all of us knowing it would have eventually happened. Now we're getting the chance to take back our lives, to make it so we don't have to run ever again, to take back what we lost. And I for one am not losing it, no matter what. Said Lee, not caring what price had to be paid if it meant he could get his legs and his revenge. But at what price? Ino asked hesitantly, only for Hinata, Hanabi, Kanoka, Mogi, Lee and Shino to look at the three with deathly serious expressions. Whatever it costs. Stated Hinata, all of them knowing there wasn't anything they wouldn't do at this point, while seeing this as their best and only option. But Anko, Ino and Tenten looking at them uneasily, not sure what to feel or do upon seeing that all of them were fully on board with Naruto's plan. The three could only hope for something to happen to finally knock some sense into them before it was too late. Time skip 3 months. With the discovery of the island laboratory and the summoning island lab, Karen's Nomu project progress had been quickly sped up. Both with the equipment from the island laboratory and the research material from the summoning island lab. Plus with the restrained and pacified ultimate summoning beast, giving her plenty of new genetic material, allowing the Redeed to create her first successful batch of human Nomu. Leading to all of Naruto's group and the resistant survivors gathering together in the summoning island lab, where Karen was ready to repair Lee's legs. I hope you're ready to finally get rid of that wheelchair, Lee. Karen stated with a smile, while the former Genin's eyes widened with hope in them. Does that mean you said Lee, hoping to finally be able to walk again? Not just yet. Remember what I asked you months ago? Naruto said, cutting Lee off, wanting to see if his answers changed. Lee looked at the Jinchuriki before remembering the question, what would he give to have his legs back? Anything, I would give anything. That hasn't changed and it won't, as long as I'm able to use my legs once again, there's no price I won't pay. Lee stated, only for Naruto and Karen to gain matching wicked smirks. Say that again after you see this. Bring them in. Naruto said while looking at Karen, who nodded before making a hand sign with several puffs of smoke appearing behind her. And to the shock of the survivors and amazement of Satsuki and Yakumo, with Anko, Tenten and Ino being horrified, several monstrous creatures appeared. Some looked vaguely humanoid but were incredibly huge and bulky, others looked limber and able to move quickly, some had animal parts like wings, and some just looked like horrifying amalgamations of flesh and machine. But one thing they all had in common were their brains being visible on top of their heads and the completely dead and empty look in their eyes, for those that had eyes anyway. I'd like you to meet the ultimate ninja killers, the Nomu. With the material I got from this lab, I've made it so they can absorb chakra, cast ninjutsu, use elemental ninjutsu themselves, and even consume other beings to gain their abilities, which at the moment is limited to summoning animals. They don't feel pain, can't think, don't run, they only follow orders and kill anything they're pointed at. And should any of them be captured, they'll blow up and kill anyone dumb enough to be near them. Karen said with a pleased look on her face, with Satsuki and Yakumo being impressed at what the Nomu can do, the survivors looked at them warily, but couldn't deny they were impressive creations, while Anko, Tenten and Ino were simply horrified at these monstrosities. WHWHWH what, IAAARRTHTHTH Ino stuttered, while Karen looked at her with a raised brow. I literally just explained what they are, they're Nomu. Unless you meant what they were human, along with some animal DNA and parts I threw in. Said Karen, which only seemed to horrify them further. You turned living people into those things. Anko demanded in anger and horror. Technically a few were just dead bodies, well they were alive, but died during the experiments. But I still found a use for them, turns out the subjects don't need to be alive to become Nomu. But I'm not sure about the condition the body needs to be in, I may need to go gravity-digging for some decaying bodies to see if they're useful. Karen replied, before she started muttering to herself and taking notes, the trio now feeling sick at how casually she's talking about grave robbing. So Lee, the procedure Karen will be performing to repair your legs, it will also result in you being turned into a Nomu. Now tell me, what would you give to have your legs back? Naruto said, much to the survivors' shock that Lee would be turned into a Nomu, with Anko, Tenten and Ino, not believing this was happening. With it being even worse when they looked at Lee and to their shock and disbelief, he actually looked like he was contemplating it. Lee. You can't actually be willing to accept this. To be turned into a monster or whatever the hell those things are. Tenten shouted, refusing to let her teammate throw his life away like that. It's my choice, Tenten. And my answer hasn't changed, if doing this allows me to be healed, I'll do it, I'll become a Nomu. Said Lee, much to their shock, while Naruto's smirk widened before snapping his fingers getting Karen's attention. Karen, looks like you just got your first volunteer. Naruto said, making her smile in excitement. Excellent. Let's get you prepped up and ready. Said Karen before going over to Lee, eager to see the kind of Nomu he'll become, only for her path to be blocked by Anko, Tenten and Ino. Okay that's it. I'm putting a stop to this right fucking now. Anko shouted, refusing to let this continue, not after seeing they're now performing human experiments just like Orochimaru. You honestly think you three can stop us? Questioned Satsuki in amusement that they thought they were a threat. Maybe not all of you, but we can at least try to take you down with us. Especially that psychotic bastard right there. Said Tenten while glaring at Naruto, who merely continued smirking. You three really aren't that bright, as in case you forgot, you're outnumbered, outclassed, and you're under the impression we'd waste our time fighting you three. Said Naruto before activating his Manjikam Sharingan while looking at the trio and activating Kodamatsukami on all three of them. Implanting the suggestion in their minds to be completely loyal to him and lose any ideas of rebelling, causing all three women to drop their stances and gain blank looks on their faces. But I do thank you for your sacrifice in furthering Karen's research and building our numbers. Naruto added with an evil smile, knowing they'll make very unique Nomu, at least Anko with her curse mark, Ino with her mental and sensor abilities, while Tenten he supposed could be outfitted with plenty of weapons. Once you're finished with Lee, get started on them. Naruto said to Karen, who nodded, happy at getting 3 new test subjects. But the survivors looking at their now former comrades, not having made a move to help them or try to sway Naruto from turning them into Nomu, knowing it'd be hopeless. Knowing they only had themselves to blame for the fate that's now befallen them. While Naruto looked at them with a smirk before taking his leave, knowing there's still so much more work to be done and preparations to make. Time skip 2 years. Sitting within his throne room, Naruto's appearance hadn't changed that much in the past 2 years, with him still wearing a dark black business suit and matching black dress shoes. Though he now kept his jacket buttoned up along with adding a black tie, white gloves, and unique black metal collar around his neck and a metal respirator mask covering his lower face. Tapping his fingers on the armrest, the Uzumaki smiled wickedly beneath his mask while his eyes glowed bright red. It's time. Naruto stated as he stood up, adjusting his tie before exiting the room. Knowing the time had come for the elemental nations to finally witness to the true power of All for One. But in one of their hidden bases, the Akatsuki members soon began appearing one by one, with the exception of Sasori, Deidara, Kakuzu and Haiden. Leaving only Pain, Konan, Kisame, Itachi, Zetsu and a new member they recruited named Tobi, who was partnered with Zetsu. The reason for the missing members was the fact that they were all dead, with Deidara and Sasori having been killed on their way to Suna to capture the Ichibi Jinchuriki. Given that Sasori's sleeper agents within Suna had reported that the Suna Council had him contemplating ways to kill the Jinchuriki due to his growing bloodlust. Something the Akatsuki couldn't let happen, so Pain had sent them to capture Gaara ahead of schedule and incapacitate him until the time comes to extract the Ichibi. Only for someone to stop them before they could arrive, killing both of the missing nin, much to Pain's annoyance as it cost them Sasori's spy network. Even worse was that whoever killed them also destroyed their rings, meaning the sealing of any Bijk would take even longer. As for Kakuzu and Haiden, they had been sent after the Nibi Jinchuriki not too long ago, knowing when and where she would be alone and unprotected thanks to information provided by the Reikage himself. Being under the belief that he could get the Akatsuki to stay away from Kumo by sacrificing one Jinchuriki to spare his brother. Though Pain agreed to the offer as a means to lull them into a false sense of security until the moment came to capture the Ichibi as well. Only for the zombie duo to be killed as well and their rings destroyed, costing them 2 more members, plus Kakuzu's contacts and locating bounties to help fund the organization. With Pain only growing more and more annoyed at the constant setbacks to their plans. Kisame, Itachi, how have you managed in locating the Ichibi Jinchuriki? Or a location for where the Ichibi would reform if he has been killed? Pain said, looking at the two, wanting to hear some good news for once only both of them to shake their heads. We haven't found any sign of the Ichibi Jinchuriki anywhere in the elemental nations. We can only guess that he's being kept imprisoned in a well-hidden and guarded location, somehow found a way out of the nations or he's dead. Itachi replied as they haven't found any sign of where Naruto could be hiding or locate any remains if he's dead. And there hasn't been any place that looks like the Ichibi's reforming, and Samehada hasn't picked up any traces of its chakra, either. If the brat's dead, there's a chance he ended up taking the fox down with him. Added Kisame, also unable to find where the Ichibi could be reforming or traces of its chakra. But their words only further annoying and angering Pain at the chance that the Ichibi could be gone for good. Oh. Leader Sama, I have an idea. Tobi said, raising his hand and waving it. But Tobi? Pain demanded, not really in the mood to deal with Madara's childish persona. We can get Kinkaku and Ginkaku. They got eaten by the fox and ate its flesh, so they have some of its chakra inside them. They just need to be brought back so it can be extracted. Zetsu senpai also learned something else too, tell them senpai. Said Tobi Willa looking at Zetsu. We did locate another source of the Ichibi's chakra. A boy in the fire temple seems to have a portion of the Ichibi's chakra sealed inside of him. Combined with the chakra within the gold and silver brothers, it could prove to be a suitable substitute for the actual Ichibi. Zetsu explained, making Pain frown as while it sounded like a good plan, he wasn't sure if the combined chakra would be enough for the Jed Masm. It would be a good plan and we're running out of options and members at the moment. Said Konan, knowing they didn't have time to be picky about where they got the Bij chakra from, whether it's sealing away the Bij or just portions of their chakra. Very well. Kisame, Itachi, both of you will travel to the fire temple, locate this boy and capture him to extract the Ichibi's chakra from him. Pain ordered with Itachi and Kisame nodding in response before their holographic images both vanished, leaving only Pain, Konan, Tobi, and Zetsu. With Madara dropping his Tobi persona and narrowed his eyes in annoyance the various setbacks that have been happening. What's worse is that they knew exactly who was responsible, they didn't have any actual proof, but they knew who it was. Zetsu, what information have you managed to gather on All for One? Madara said, looking at the plant-like creature, wanting to know what he's managed to gather on All for One. When they first heard rumors of the mysterious crime boss, they were at first dismissive of them, doubting he was little more than an upstart criminal trying to act big and strong. But as time passed and the more they heard, the more the Akatsuki began paying attention. Learning that despite hardly, if ever, being seen, All for One's influence was spreading throughout the elemental nations. First by simply growing his own power base among the criminal underworld, killing anyone that got in his way or making others wish they were dead. Then he began bringing other nations under his control through their leaders or installing puppet leaders that were loyal to him. But the worst part was when he introduced his Nomu to the world. On the surface it may look like the Nomu were the result of a joint project between the Land of Snow Spring and the Crescent Moon Kingdom, using the former's technology and the latter's wealth. But the Akatsuki knew All for One was the real mastermind behind the genetically engineered creatures. Having begun selling them to the highest bidders after demonstrating their power. With their strength, endurance, inability to feel pain, grow tired or slow down, along with following any orders made them the perfect substitute for mercenaries like the Akatsuki portrayed themselves as. Even the hidden villages had begun purchasing the Nomu, using them in place of their own ninja to conserve their strength and numbers, instead sending Nomu to deal with any problems. Something that cut into the Akatsuki's profit, with Kakuzu having been especially angered at this before his death. They had even tried capturing a few Nomu to find out how they were made to try and make their own, or find out how to kill them. Only for any they succeeded in subduing to self-destruct, reducing their bodies completely to ash. Which only further annoyed them that All For One has ensured no one can create Nomu except him. Leading Pain to order all the Akatsuki to find out all information they can on All For One, who he is, where he's located, his allies, and if they can, to kill him. But once again it seemed like he was staying several steps ahead as no one knew where All For One's base was located, who his allies are, or what he's even capable of. They had attempted to sneak into the land of Snow and Crescent Moon Kingdom, guessing they were under All For One's control, given that's where everyone believed the Nomu were coming from. But any attempts to infiltrate either country resulted in them immediately being swarmed by dozens of Nomu, forcing them to retreat given how dangerous they are in greater numbers. Even Zetsu's ability to move through the ground and plant life didn't keep him safe from being found and attacked. So, as much as the Akatsuki hated to admit it, they couldn't do anything against All For One, forcing them to focus solely on tracking down the Jinchuriki and Bijk. But that didn't stop Madara from having Zetsu trying to find just a hint of where the crime boss was located, anything they could use to find him. Unfortunately, no. I have searched every country I can, every location that All For One has been rumored to be in, only to find nothing. Anyone I've interrogated also has no information on him, only rumors and being terrified of his name. Whoever All For One is, he's taken great steps to remain anonymous and hide in the shadows, seemingly satisfied to rule through his followers. But at this point, I don't even know if he even really exists or is just an idea created by others to have attention on him rather than on themselves. Said Zetsu, annoyed that he's been unable to find any information on All For One, starting to believe he really is just a rumor. Though even if that was true, it didn't stop Black Zetsu from being enraged that someone was interfering with its plans to revive Kagaya. Contemplating that whoever All For One, if he's real to begin with, could be aware and acting against him. Only for the parasite to dismiss that thought, knowing that no one is aware of Kagaya or its connection to her. While Madara frowned behind his mask, annoyed that they still don't have any information on All For One or where he is. No matter, he can't hide forever and once he reveals himself, he'll die. Madara said, refusing to let this person interfere in his plans more than they already have before he turned to Konan in pain. Konan, track down where Orochimaru is hiding, if we're to revive Kinkaku and Ginkaku, we'll need his knowledge on the Edo Tensei. How you get it is entirely up to you, merely get the information. And Nagato, send out your paths to everywhere in the elemental nations, you and Zetsu will collect the DNA of deceased ninja. Ordered Madara, knowing they'll need greater numbers of capture the Bijk, as well as deal with All For One and his allies. And what better army could there be than one made up of the world's most powerful ninja who can't die? Kumagakure. Meanwhile, A was looking over reports of the movements of Iwa and Kiri, with a frown on his face, seeing that Iwa's forces were beginning to move into the land of grass, the land of stone, and the land of wind. While Kiri was still weak from their civil war, they were beginning to strengthen their borders to hold off any attacks. Doesn't help that they managed to get their hands on those new aquatic Nomu. Thought A with a scowl, annoyed at how Kiri was able to buy the new aquatic Nomu that the land of snow had just unveiled, knowing how useful they'd be. When the Nomu had first been unveiled, I had been suspicious of them, even more so when their powers were demonstrated. Believing that the land of Snow and Crescent Moon Kingdom were planning to join in the war with these creatures. But instead they began selling them to whoever paid the most, something A saw as rather foolish, given who'd willingly sell off such powerful weapons. Especially if they could simply be turned against both countries once they were sold. Only to realize that they were needed, given how they kept creating newer and more powerful Nomu, while no other country has succeeded in recreating them. Making it so they're dependent on the land of Snow and Crescent Moon Kingdom to supply them more Nomu before their enemies could get them. Which only annoyed A further, but knew the Nomu were too useful to not buy, especially if it allowed him the chance to save on sending his ninja out when they could stay and keep strengthening the village. So far Kumo had a few dozen Nomu, all of them ready to be sent out to attack any targets A ordered them to, while having placed Yujito in command of them. Though the thought of the Nibi Jinchuriki made A frown, knowing she wasn't meant to return from her last mission. While it may seem cold-hearted that he was willing to sacrifice a strong and loyal ninja like Yujito, even more so that she's a Jinchuriki. O also didn't need to worry about the Akatsuki targeting Kumo when they're preparing for war, not to mention how B was also a Jinchuriki. If keeping the Akatsuki away from Kumo and B meant sacrificing Yujito, then the Reikage would do so again. After all, while Yujito's a loyal ninja, she's still a Jinchuriki, a tool meant to be used by the village however he deems necessary. But rather than be captured by the Akatsuki, she instead returned while the Akatsuki members sent to capture her were killed. With Yujito having since become distant and cold to everyone, something that worried A, given the chance she could know the truth. Even though she still fulfilled her duties, she now isolated herself, refusing to interact with anyone. This led A to giving Yujito command of the Nomu, something that could be seen as foolish, giving a potential flight risk command of unstoppable creatures. But A had only done so after giving all the Nomu the order to kill Yujito if she showed any signs of plotting against Kumo. Making it so he can deal with a potential threat before they can try anything against the village. At least Kumo will still have the Nibi under its control. A thought since it'd also ensure they keep both their Bij rather than lose one, even better that it seems like the Akatsuki has recently gone underground. Meaning all he needed to worry about was dealing with Iwa then getting the rest of the nations to fall in line, leaving only Kumo as the remaining power in the world. Iwagakure. Kumo's starting to move into the land of frost and the land of hot water. Probably hoping to get a foothold in the land of fire, giving them a chance to move through the land of canyons and land of grass, straight into the land of earth. Thought Lenoki looking over reports of Kumo's movements before he began writing up a message to Kuretsuchi, wanting her to send a team of Nomu underground, ready to deal with any Kumo ninja that try moving into the land of fire. His granddaughter had returned just under a year ago after he sent her out trying to find whoever had killed Dansm, only to return both empty-handed and in critical condition. Something that had worried Lenoki on what could have done that to her, with Kuretsuchi having no idea what happened. As she'd been on a recent trail before suddenly being ambushed and blacking out before waking up back in Iowa. But Tsuchikage only being able to guess she'd been close to finding something and whoever she was following had sensed her. It had taken her 2 weeks before she could return to active duty, wishing to get back to hunting down her target only for Lenoki to deny her request. Doubting that the person who did that to her would let her live a second time. But Tsuchikage not budging no matter how much she demanded or begged until she finally relented. Though that didn't stop Kuretsuchi from wanting to redeem her failure, instead requesting to be put in charge of the Nomu, something that surprised Lenoki. At first he denied her request again, only for the girl to be stubborn and not budge, wanting to do her part and make up for her failure. With Lenoki eventually relenting and allowing her to have command of the Nomu, with her so far proving to be a natural at ordering them around. That'll at least prove useful, should anything happen to Rashi. She'll already have experience commanding beasts around. Lenoki thought, thinking of one of his secret plans that he's kept to himself. Given that Rashi was starting to get older, Lenoki had been looking for candidates to seal the Yonbi into, only to find the perfect one in his own granddaughter. With her already being able to use Imton along with her own natural talent, he knew she'd be the perfect choices as the Yonbi's next Jinchuriki. She'll be angry about it, but will accept it for the good of the village. Thought Lenoki, knowing Kuretsuchi will be angry at the idea of becoming a Jinchuriki, but she'll have to deal with it. And with this all for one around, it may happen sooner rather than later. Thought Lenoki with a grim expression, having heard rumors of this all for one, having made sure to keep track of them, since he hadn't lived to be the oldest Kage by making mistakes or overlooking things. And from what little he's heard of all for one, then he'll be a problem to be dealt with soon. But for now that Tsuchikage would focus on dealing with the other hidden villages first, then taking care of this crime boss. Kiri. Mei couldn't help but sigh in exhaustion as she looked over the reports of Kumo's and Iwa's movements. And here we are, having to hide away on our islands, surrounding ourselves with Nomu. Thought Mei, having hoped when she became Mizukage she could focus on rebuilding her village. Instead, she's been forced to focus on improving their defenses, so Kiri will be able to hold off any attacks, which is helped by the Nomu. Especially the new aquatic Nomu stationed all around the land of water's islands. Unfortunately, while the Nomu were incredibly helpful, allowing her to have all her ninja here in the village to focus on rebuilding and increasing their numbers, the Nomu weren't cheap. And after the civil war, Kiri was lacking in funds to purchase them, forcing them to sell property in the village and the land of water to get more. It'd be better if we had the rest of the 7 swords. Mei thought, given how the 7 swords of the mist had been lost over the years, with the last generation of members either defecting and taking their blades or dying outside the village and their swords being lost. With Hiramekure being the only one they've managed to recover and currently in possession of CHMJKRM, but it still wasn't enough. The only other good news they've had is when Zabuza returned with the Demon Brothers and his apprentice, bringing with them much needed funds and the Kubikurumjm. Plus given how strong Zabuza said Haku was, Mei knew she'd be a great asset to help defend Kiri from attacks. Hopefully we'll be getting more good news soon once the Sanbi is located. Thought Mei, having sent out a few teams to locate the Sanbi, knowing having one of their Bij back will be a major boon to Kiri. With Jiraiya sitting in a bar with a hooded cloak hiding his face, Jiraiya looked down at the counter with a somber expression on his face. One he's been wearing a lot more frequently as more time passed, while not having even bothered touching his drink. The toad sage being too lost in thought, thinking over all his newest failures. Still remembering when he first learned of Dansm taking control of Konoha and becoming Hokage, along with how it happened and what he did afterwards, Jiraiya had made a beeline straight for the village. Both to join the resistance against the Warhawk and find out what happened to his godson, doubting that Minato and Kushina's son would really desert Konoha. But by the time he arrived, he was too late. Dansm had already slaughtered the resistance, and all of Konoha had been destroyed by the Otosuna invasion. Something that nearly destroyed the Sannin, only managing to pull himself together at learning a few resistance members managed to escape the massacre and evidence that Dansm had actually kidnapped Naruto. Something that gave Jiraiya hope he could at least do something good by finding the survivors and Naruto, hoping to do that after this massive failure. Only to come up empty-handed, he searched everywhere he could think of that they could have gone, but found nothing. No trail, no evidence, nothing that helped find the survivors or Naruto, much to his growing despair. But still he tried pushing on, now focusing on gathering information on the Akatsuki and hunting down Orochimaru to get revenge for his part in Konoha's destruction. And when rumors began spreading about All For One, he began gathering information on him as well. And once again, he's gotten nowhere, being unable to find whatever hole Orochimaru was hiding in, anything about All For One, and all he's managed to gather on the Akatsuki is their hunting Jinchuriki. But other than that, Jiraiya didn't have anything worthwhile to go off of, though he still kept searching, hoping to try and do some good after all his newest failures. Though things didn't end there as Jiraiya had also been trying to find Tsunade, hoping that she'd be willing to help him and the fact she's the last friend he had anymore that was alive. Only for the Toad Sage to learn that Tsunade and Shizun's bodies had been found nearly 3 months ago, already starting to decay. This knowledge crushing Jiraiya at learning his friend teammate childhood crush was dead. I'm the last one, the last remnant of Konoha. Everything and everyone else, it's all gone. Jiraiya thought sadly that he's the last remnant of his home village. All he could do now was keep trying to push forward and do what he can to help the world, though the Sannin wasn't sure what else he can do anymore. Land of Waves. Within his hideout in the Land of Waves, Gaten was looking over the different reports of his recent shipments, both illegal and illegal ones. The corrupt businessman smirking at seeing the profit he's made, along with the new shipment he's gotten from the Land of Water. I'm sure Kumo and Iwa would be happy to have more of those Kekkei Genkai users. Gaten thought, knowing that Kekkei Genkai users made plenty of money due to how valuable they were for their abilities, and the Land of Water was filled with ones that were still scattered and in hiding from the civil war. I hope you weren't thinking of making deals behind my back, Gaten. Said a familiar, making the short businessman turn deathly pale as he shakily looked up, only to gulp in fear at seeing a large swarm of bugs condensed into a familiar humanoid shape, with glowing red eyes staring at Gaten. What? NNN no. Of, CC co course NN no not, SSSC sir. I and fa fact I juju just GG go gotta NN nu SSHSH shy shipment Gaten stuttered, only to find his voice escaping him when the figure narrowed their eyes at him. Shut up. If you can't even speak clearly, perhaps you've outlived your usefulness. Said the person, which only made Gaten pale further, even more so when they raised their hand, with the bugs partly dispersing showing a white-gloved hand. No. Please sir, I can still help you. I was saying that I've just received some new Kekkei Genkai users and was actually going to send them to you, right now. Said Gaten quickly, only feeling some relief when the bugs covered up the hand. Well, that's certainly good to hear. I'll be pleased to see how they do in Castle Dusk, if they're worth my time or sent to the lab. Is there anything else you wish to share, Gaten? Questioned the figure, the midget hastily shaking his head. No, and nothing new sir. Gaten replied, simply wanting the figure to leave so he can breathe easily again. Is that so? Very well, but do be sure to contact me if anything comes up. And don't forget Gaten, you're only useful as long as I see you as useful. The figure said while narrowing his eyes, Gaten nodding again while tugging at his collar. Why yes, of course. And I'm eager to show how useful I am. Said Gaten, the figure merely continued looking at him before the swarm dispersed, with the businessman finally gasping as he took several deep breaths while clenching his fists to stop the shaking. No matter how many times he's encountered him before, Gaten would always be terrified of that man, All For One. Just thinking his name made Gaten shudder in horror, always feeling that any time he appears, whether in the rare time he shows up in person or through those bugs, it'll be to kill him. He still remembered the day he first encountered All For One, being unable to forget it. Flashback. That'll keep those fools in line. Thought Gaten with a pleased smirk on his face as he entered his office, having just come from making an example out of some of the Land of Waves citizens. After Zabuza and his partner managed to kill that annoying bridge builder Tazuna, Gat was able to secure his hold on the land of waves. He'd even actually paid Zabuza for completing the job rather than betray them, like he originally planned. Seeing the swordsman was actually effective in his work, Gatm figured it'd be more beneficial to simply pay him in the event he needed any more problems solved. As for Tazuna's unfinished bridge, Gatm decided to leave it as a reminder to the people of what happens, then they try getting in his way. Though not everyone saw it that way, some of them starting to believe the bridge was a symbol that they could beat him, with Tazuna having been turned into a martyr for refusing to give up. Something that annoyed the businessman, but it was easily solved by having his men capture all those that spoke out against him. Before having them publicly hung from the bridge, leaving their bodies there as an additional warning. He'd even gone as far as to wipe out the rest of Tazuna's family, not wanting to take the chance his daughter or grandson had any foolish ideas of opposing him. Though the bitch proved annoying, actually killing 2 of his men when they broke down their door. But she and her brat had been dealt with without much of a hassle afterwards. And now Wave is entirely under my control until someone else is dumb enough to get in my way. Thought Gat with a wicked smirk, only for it to be wiped off his face when he saw someone was sitting at his desk going through his papers. Who the fuck are you? Gat demanded, angry at someone breaking into his base and now going through his stuff. You seem to have built up quite the little empire, Gat. Starting up your own shipping company, using it as a cover for your smuggling of illegal goods and selling drugs. Then taking control of the land of waves, putting you in the perfect position to send out your products to various countries. Though you also seem to be rather short-sighted, not taking advantage of a bridge being built that you could have easily took control of and put up a toll for anyone who wanted to use it. Even better that you didn't even have to pay a single rim for it to be built. Rather sloppy. Said the person without looking up, making Gatm scowl in anger. Samurai, Waraji. Get in here and kill this bastard. Gatm shouted for his bodyguards before he was thrown back when the office doors were blown open. Getting up, Gatm gasped in shock and horror, while his face paled and turned green in disgust when he saw 2 hulking monstrous creatures enter his office. Though what made him sick was that both of them were covered in blood, gore and organs, along with them carrying the beaten and broken forms of his guards. The midget then throwing up everything in his stomach when one of them slammed Waraji into the ground, causing his head to burst open, spraying blood, skull fragments, and grey matter all over. While the other actually bit into Samurai's side, tearing a massive chunk out of the thug before throwing him at Gatm. The businessman only being able to shake in fear before quickly crawling backwards away from the creatures, only to freeze when he bumped into something. Slowly, Gatm looked up, only to whimper in terror at seeing the person who'd been sitting at his desk now looking down at him with glowing red eyes, their lower face hidden by a strange metallic mask. You ask me who I am? All for one. And don't bother calling for the help, the rest of your men are already dead. Said All for One, would this only make Gatm's fear grow more at learning this was the feared crime boss he's heard rumors about. WHWHWH what, do, why you want. Gatm stuttered as All for One went and stood between the 2 creatures. Simple Gatm, as of this moment you work for me, your company is under my control, and you'll be doing anything I say. If I say jump, you don't ask how high, you find the nearest cliff and jump off it. Said All for One, making Gatm nod his head rapidly. Yes, of course, I'd be happy to serve you, sir. Anything you need me to do I'll do it, anything Gatm said, relieved he wasn't going to die, only to suddenly gag at feeling something thin and sharp wrap around his neck, while All for One held up a hand, with small near-invisible wires attached to his glove. You misunderstand Gatm, you aren't serving me, you are merely a figurehead that I'm using. The moment you no longer prove yourself useful, you will die. How long that lasts depends entirely on you, but make no mistake, should you even think of disobeying me you would be wise to end your miserable life before I find you. Said All for One before releasing Gatm from his wires, making the midget whimper in fear. Why yes, SSC sir. I'll ha happily shsh show yuhh ho how you useful I am. Stuttered Gatm as All for One merely nodded before turning around to leave. I'm sure you will. These Nomu along with a few others will be serving as your new help, they'll follow any orders given, as long as those order doesn't go against my own. Never forget Gatm, you're useful, not irreplaceable. You said one toe out of line, remember this, I don't give second chances. All for One threatened, Gatm merely nodding in fear. Then flashback. That's when Gatm had begun smuggling people, usually Kekkei Genkai users, who he'd sent to All for One. Though he had no idea what he wanted them for. Only that he sent them to some place called Castle Dusk to be tested, and Gatm doubted he even wanted to know what happens to them afterwards. But so far he's managed to stay alive, though that didn't stop him from trying to think of ways to get out from under All for One's thumb. Given any time he encountered the crime boss, he never failed to remind him how expendable he is. Unfortunately, Gadam hasn't been able to do anything to get away, he couldn't even try hiring Zabuza again to kill All for One. Not only because he had no idea where he was, but also hearing that Zabuza and his partner had rejoined Kiri. Meaning if he tried hiring them, it'd be an official mission, one that All for One would undoubtedly hear about. I have to find a way out. Gadam thought desperately, knowing he needed to do something or he was going to die. Land of Snow. Meanwhile, within the Land of Snow, the daemon Koyuki Kazuhana was overlooking construction of the new airships. Having been able to design them based off of Anchorvantion, though unlike the Flying Temple, the airships won't be nearly as big but will be just as deadly. And with the designs from the heating generators, they'll also have their own weather machines. Koyuki thought with a smirk, given with the heating generators her father built to turn the country into the land of spring, along with some help with Genjutsu, they were able to design their own weather machines to create snow, rain, fog, hail, and hurricanes. This way once the airships were completed, they could create different weather conditions to hide themselves in, leaving enemies helpless as they were attacked from above, but had no idea from where. With Anchorvantion having already been outfitted with weather machines, keeping it hidden while it moved through the air. I'm sure All for One will be happy once these are up in the air. The rest of the nations not so much. Stated someone, making Koyuki look to see her bodyguard, Fubuki Kakyoku, approaching her with her wearing the newest model of chakra armor as well. Like the original model it protected the wearer from ninjutsu and jinjutsu, as well as create a barrier to deflect weapons. The newer version now also absorbs the chakra of any jutsu or ninja that comes into contact with it and transfers it to the wearer, further empowering them and weakening their enemies. And after being improved with Genjutsu, the chakra armor was now capable of self-repairing any damage inflicted on it. And absorbing the kinetic energy from any taijutsu strikes, nullifying physical attacks as well, even better that the absorbed energy can be released in a burst to knock enemies back. Not to mention that it was also capable of creating snow and ice, allowing the wearers to use ice-style ninjutsu wherever they are. Yes, he will. And I'm sure the other nations will think we'll be selling the airships to them as our newest weapon. Maybe we will sell them, just to have them begin bombarding their villages the moment they're in the air above them. Said Koyuki with her smirk growing, while Fubuki laughed darkly. I'm sure he'd love the idea. Taking even more of the hidden villages' money, just to give us even more ways to destroy them. Fubuki said, with Koyuki nodding in agreement, with her mind turning to the one that gave her back her country. 3 years ago, she'd never even dreamed to become daemon of the Land of Snow, let alone set foot in it or having one of Datum's former guards as her own. Yet here she was now, not only daemon and having Fubuki at her side. But also helping to plant a destruction of the shinobi system and taking over the world. And all thanks to him. Koyuki thought, sometimes still not believing this was only possible because of a crime boss. Though she knew it's because he's no ordinary crime boss, nor is he just a power-hungry tyrant like Datum had been, instead being something else. Datum certainly learned that the hard way. Thought Koyuki smirking wickedly as her mind drifted to what All for One did to her uncle. Flashback. Datum groaned as he began waking up, only being able to feel a striking pain in his head before his eyes snapped open at realizing he couldn't move. Lifting his head, Datum's eyes widened at seeing he hadn't only been stripped of his clothes and chakra armor, leaving him in just his underwear. He'd also been tied up and left laying across train tracks. The tyrant also realizing he had a gag tied around his mouth, keeping him from speaking. Ah, you're finally awake. So glad you could join us, uncle. Koyuki said mockingly, making Datum look to see her standing in front of him, along with Fubuki, much to his anger that she betrayed him. Hi Datum-sama. Don't take it personally, but my new boss will be paying me more. Plus I'll be getting a lot more benefits with Koyuki-sama and him, the biggest being I'll be on the winning side. Though don't worry Natter and Miser didn't betray you, but they are dead, for the time being anyway. Said Fubuki, crossing her arms with a smirk, which only angered the tyrant further. Datum then began screaming through his gag, swearing he'd make them both pay for humiliating him in such a way, along with struggling to break free. Only to be silenced when a foot stomped down on his head, knocking it back to the ground and dazing Datum, as well as breaking his nose. If you're quite finished, then I believe it's time we began this lesson. Someone said, with Datum seeing someone walking around him to stand between Koyuki and Fubuki. But before we begin, allow me to introduce myself, I am All for One. Introduced All for One, causing Datum's eyes to widen in shock, having heard of the shadowy figure that's been rising up through the criminal underworld. Though Datum hadn't concerned himself much with some upstart criminal brat, no matter what he's heard he only saw some regular civilian thinking they were strong. Figuring that someone would eventually come around and deal with them and that'd be the end of it. Only now the same upstart dared to actually try and challenge him. Feeling even angrier that some worthless brat dared to think he could stand against him. Datum shouted through his gag that he'd tear him apart along with anyone stupid enough to side with him. SHHHH. All for one said with Dotun finding himself falling silent, feeling a sudden uneasiness when looking into those red eyes. Now then, Dotun, you are no longer in charge of the land of snow or anything really. All your allies are dead, aside from Fubuki here who was the only one among your guards I considered worth anything. But now Koyuki has reclaimed her place as daemon of the land of snow, swearing her loyalty to me. Yet that still leaves the issue of you, doesn't it? Said All for One, making Dotun gain a nervous look in his eyes, beginning to realize that he's completely helpless at the moment. I would have just killed you and been done with it. But after hearing his idea I couldn't resist the chance to see the coward you really are on the inside. Koyuki said eagerly, which only made the tyrant more nervous at what All for One was planning. You see Dotun, I've always found myself disappointed with the criminals of the elemental nations. There's simply no variety, no matter where you look. Oh sure, everyone has different plans, abilities, methods of achieving their goals. But it's all the same goal in the end, getting more power. I will admit I'm no different in craving power, yet there's one thing I value in being a criminal. I value having a sense of class, adding a flair to my acts. Everyone else though is so tiring, always acting like they're the toughest and scariest around, always boasting at what they're capable of. It's all so boring and repetitive. And you are no different Dotun, the only thing you care for is getting money and power, you have no class, no flair, all you really are is just a thug playing dress up. All for One said while pacing back and forth before stopping in front of Dotun. I believe the world deserves a better class of criminals, a gentleman villain if you will. And we'll start with this, tying someone to train tracks. Said All for One, stepping forward onto the tracks and crouching down beside Dotun motioning to his current position. It's simple, inexpensive, personal and deadly. But it gives you a little hope, maybe you'll escape. All for One stated, causing Dotun to begin yelling through his gag, saying he will escape and mount his head over his throne. Only for the tyrant to fall silent again when All for One forced his head back as a wave of fear washed over Dotun, making him shudder as All for One glared at him. The lesson's not over, thug. All for One said before sighing and standing up once Dotun stayed silent. Now there's another trick I have devised for the gentleman villain, and a rather poetic one. A time bomb, 3 sticks of dynamite wired to an alarm clock, and what's so poetic about it is that they tick. Said All for One, sounding pleased at the ticking part the most. I'm sure you're wondering, why have it make any noise at all? And why make a silent bomb? If there's no sound, there's no peril. But imagine if you could hear them, tick, tick, tick. All for One said, waving his finger back and forth before Dotun tensed and looked to the left when he heard a train coming, making his eyes widen in panic. Oh? Oh ho ho ho. Do you hear that? There's the ticking. The train is coming. Is it on this track? Tick, tick, tick. Maybe it's on the other track. Tick, tick, tick. Said All for One, looking on as Dotun screamed and struggled, terrified at the approaching train and having no idea what track it's on. Not bad for an upstart criminal brat. All for One said before turning back to Koyuki and Fubuki, both women smiling wickedly at the sight. Koyuki had seen just how terrified her uncle was, relishing in the fear he had that he could end up being run over right now or not. While Fubuki felt even more confident at her choice to join All for One, knowing anyone that can inspire this kind of fear is someone she wanted to be on the side of. We're gonna get going, let you try to escape. And if you do, crawl into a hole where I can't find you and stay there. And if you don't, hey, nothing important lost. Said All for One before he, Koyuki and Fubuki vanished in a swirling distortion, leaving Dotun screaming as the train finally arrived. Then flashback. Koyuki was pulled from her thoughts when she felt Fubuki wrap her arms around her and begin kissing her neck. You're thinking about it again. Fubuki stated as she planted kisses on Koyuki's neck while her hands moved along her body. Can you blame me? It's one of my favorite memories, even better with what the three of us did afterwards. You certainly proved you were more than qualified to ensure I'm taken care of. Replied Koyuki, moaning in pleasure when Fubuki moved one of her hands up to her breasts, with the pincat laughing seductively as she nibbled lightly on the daemon's ear. What can I say, I wanted to make sure you knew I could protect every part of this. Body purred Fubuki as her other hand went down and cupped Koyuki's crotch through her clothes, making the ravenet gasp. Perhaps I need a reminder of just how skilled you are. Koyuki said, turning her head to look at Fubuki, the pincat smirked before the two vanished in a swirl of snow. Crescent Moon Kingdom. The Crescent Moon Kingdom was known for its beautiful beaches, various shops and casinos. And recently is now known for its joint project with the Land of Snow Spring in producing and selling Nomu. With it having begun not long after the new queen, Ameo, had taken the office after the former minister Shabadaba and his allies were eliminated. But Ameo currently sitting in her office going over the reports for the finances they've gained. Well, despite being queen, the woman still preferred to dress more simply and casually. having never cared for fancy clothing, jewelry or makeup, even when she'd been married to her former husband. The new batch of Nomu were well received, all the villages were eager to get their hands on Nomu that breathed poisonous gas. Ameo thought, pleased at the profit they've made after receiving the new Nomu, before she smiled as she looked at the other reports of the money made from the new parks. After she'd become queen, she wanted to start opening up parks, arcades, and other locations that children would be able to enjoy, and not just adults. Something she'd hoped to do back when she was married to Michiru, but had never been able to get a moment to speak with the king. Well, her husband only cared about spending money than anything to improve his future kingdom. Bakara would have loved it. Ameo thought sadly, still feeling the pain at the loss of her son, as well as nothing but anger and hatred at those that took him away from her. Not just Shabadaba and the mercenary ninja he hired, but Michiru and his father as well, given the wedding contract she had to sign prevented her from taking Hikaru with her when she left. Something that cost her the only good thing that came from her marriage. But at least they're all dead, now. Ameo thought vindictively, happy at knowing every last one of them are dead, even better that the mercenary ninja suffered a fate worse than death. With her owing it all to the true ruler of the Crescent Moon Kingdom, all for one. He really was everything everyone said about him and so much more. Thought Ameo, still remembering when she first met him and the offer he made her. Flashback. Ameo stalked into her room with an empty, dead look in her eyes, something that hasn't faded ever since she received news of Hikaru's death. Not really caring when she also learned Michiru was dead, only the fact that her son, her little boy, was taken from her. She barely remembers anything after getting the news, only that when she finally regained her focus, she could barely say anything with how much she screamed, and her face was stained with tear tracks. While everything around her had been smashed or ripped apart, with even her clothes being ripped. Though she didn't care, unable to bring herself to care about anything. After that she'd simply kept going through the motions of every day, yet not really doing anything and simply working to keep her mind focused on anything but what she lost. It seems no one ever told you the dangers of ignoring your surroundings. Someone stated, making Ameo look at seeing an intruder sitting in her room. Who the fuck are you? Questioned Ameo uncaringly, with the person raising a brow before standing up and putting his hands in his pockets. I am All for One and I'm here with an offer for you. Said All for One, with the woman not reacting to the name before going towards her bed. I don't care, so either kill me or leave. Ameo said, not interested in whatever offer he had. Not even if it means getting revenge for your son. All for One said, causing Ameo to freeze in place. How? Ameo said quietly, unable to deny the small part of her that hoped he was telling the truth and he could get her revenge for her son. The how is unimportant, just know that Shabadaba and those three fools dressing up as ninja, as well as anyone else who sides with him, will be dead at your feet. Or screaming in pain and agony, whichever you'd prefer. In exchange said All for One, only for Ameo to cut him off. I don't have anything you could want, but I'll gladly do whatever you say if it means all of them are dead. I'll let you use me as a sex toy if that's what you want. Ameo said, willing to do anything he could possibly want her to do if it means Shabadaba and his allies pay. A rather enticing offer. But what I want is for you to take over as queen of the Crescent Moon Kingdom. Given your previous marriage to the prince, the people would be familiar with you, and I'm sure you would know the responsibilities given you were likely the more reasonable one compared to your husband. Making it easy for you to take the throne, especially with no other claimants after Shabadaba is dead. But I will be the one truly in charge, you will be free to act as you wish, but you will follow my every order. All for One said, narrowing his eyes. Done. Ameo immediately replied, not caring that she'd have to be queen or that she'd essentially be a puppet ruler, only that she'd have her revenge. Then flashback. Their screams still help me sleep at night. Ameo thought, smiling cruelly, still able to hear the way Shabadaba and his allies screamed as they were ripped apart. How they all begged for mercy as if there was any way that any of them would have walked away alive. It was even better that All for One gave her the pleasure of finishing them off herself, and Ameo certainly enjoyed watching the life leave their eyes. And I certainly enjoyed the pleasure that came afterwards. Thought Ameo, licking her lips, as well it's not what he wanted from her, she still desired to give her own repayment for what he'd done for her. Afterwards she'd taken over as queen, helping fix the damage Shabadaba had done in wasting the kingdom's money for his own vices. Along with improving on things to make the Crescent Moon Kingdom more self-sufficient beyond just being rich. She'd also replaced all the guards with Nomu, who proved far stronger and without any worry of betrayal. Since they couldn't be paid off and they only followed the orders of a select few, anyone else that tried ordering them around were treated as a threat to be eliminated. I wonder how the villages will react when their Nomu begin fulfilling their true orders. Thought Ameo, knowing the reactions would certainly be priceless when the time comes. Anchorvantion. Anchorvantion, having been created decades ago by the Land of the Sky to serve as a flying, mobile base, along with being described as the ultimate weapon of destruction. Possessing a powerful laser-like weapon on the front, regarded as the ultimate weapon and said to be able to wipe out the 5 great nations in an instant. But the entire fortress being powered by a creature known as the Ryubi, though not a true Bijik and instead a malevolent spirit that the Sky Ninja restrained and used to power Anchor-Vanshan. But the flying city having originally been in the possession of the remnants of the Land of the Sky until they were all wiped out and the fortress having fallen into All for One's possession. The crime boss further outfitting Anchor-Vanshan with greater weapons and defenses. As well as a weather machine from the Land of Snow to hide the location and movements of the fortress. Along with refitting the fortress to suit the needs of his organization. At the moment, Naruto was sitting on his throne in Anchor-Vanshan, tapping the armrest as he waited. Before soon a large swarm of insects appeared and swirled around in front of him, with the swarm moving and leaving behind a person each time it did. Until soon standing in front of him was Satsuki, Yakumo, Karen, Hinata, Hanabi, Kanoka, Mogi, Shino, and 2 new recruits. With all the original members having changed greatly in the past 2 years. But Satsuki having grown her hair out to the middle of her back and kept it in a 2-side-up hairstyle, which consists of part of her being made into twin tails tied with black ribbons, while the majority hangs loose. While her attire now consisted of black boots that went up just below her knees and had several blue buckles going up them, fishnet leggings, black short shorts held up by a white belt, a tight-fitting white tank top that left her abdomen exposed, and a dark blue coat with 2 large metal cuffs at the end of each elbow-length sleeve, and a white stitch design on each of her shoulders, with the hem ripped, extending down to her knees. Ikumo's current outfit consisted of altered Maiko clothes, primarily in red with a sleeveless red jacket with a white collar tied with a yellow ribbon, detached red and gray sleeves on each arm, 2 coattails in the lower back, and 1 coattail in the front with a yin-yang symbol, along with 2 belts on the waist. Underneath she wears a sleeveless black vest, black shorts, and black boots that go up to her knees. With her longer and loose hair being tied back by a large red bow. Karen was wearing a simpler outfit consisting of black dress shoes, dark brown thigh-high socks, a short black pleated skirt, a white dress shirt with a crimson tie that matched her hair and eyes, and a white lab coat over it. Hanoka was wearing a navy blue skirt, matching thigh-high socks, brown shoes, white sailor shirt with yellow ribbon, a blue and white jacket with the sleeves, shoulders with the back being blue with white X on the shoulders, and the front being white around the zipper. Mogi's new clothes consisted of a black turtleneck, a baggy white jacket with 2 zeros on the left side with black pockets, 4 red and black pull strings hanging from the bottom with 2 on either side, a gray skirt, black leggings, and orange and white sneakers. Hinata was now wearing a strapless black leotard, a chain belt with 2 silver roses motifs, a black choker and red gloves, a black bolero jacket with gold buttons, ruffled sleeves and 3 floor-length coattails, thigh-length pantases, and stiletto heels that resemble ballet shoes on the top. Hanabi was wearing a black vest, black panties and black stockings with pink shoes, while over it, she wore a long tattered black cloak. And Shino now wore black sandals, a long dark blue robe decorated with yellow triangle patterns on the end of the sleeves, a black robe over it with yellow trimming, and a yin-yang symbol at the bottom, surrounded by yellow edging, dark blue gloves, and a blue wrapping around his entire head, concealing his face with only his right eye being revealed, which appeared white from the wrapping. With the Aburam also having several insects buzzing around him before they seemingly merged with his body. As for the 2 new recruits, the first was a 16-year-old girl with fair skin, black eyes, and long purple hair with 2 bangs framing her face and covering her left eye. With her attire consisting of black boots, an aqua blue dress with a slit going up the right side exposing her leg and no sleeve on her right arm, the left sleeve being baggy and only covering her upper arm, as well as a high collar, a white girdle-style belt around her abdomen, a white short cape over her shoulders, black gloves, and black arm sleeves over her elbow. And the second was a girl that looked 10 years old, though is actually older than anyone else here, with her having fair skin, short, neck-length spiky light blonde hair with 2 thick strands reach her rosy cheeks, and violet eyes. Her outfit consisted of a black high-collared sleeveless undershirt, a sleeveless pink kimono-like shirt, long light gray pants, black fingerless gloves that reached her upper arm, brown pouch wrapped around her waist, white bandages wrapped up to his knees on both legs, brown belt, and gray sandals. These 2 were Isaribi and Chino Chinook, with Isaribi having been a former experiment of Orochimaru's from the Land of the Sea, while Chino is the last of the Chinook clan. Naruto had recruited Isaribi after learning of another of Orochimaru's bases in the Land of the Sea and that it researched how to create underwater ninja by turning humans into aquatic hybrids. Something that Naruto knew would be useful to further Karen's Noma research. Leading to them going to the Land of the Sea where they encountered Isaribi, the only surviving experiment of the scientist at the base, Amachi. With her being recruited after they exposed how Amachi never intended to cure her or even knew how, leading to Isaribi joining Naruto and Karen. Being turned into a high-end Nomu, retaining her identity and ability to think, as well as being capable of fully transforming between her Nomu and human forms. While Chino was recruited after Naruto learned of her existence when he learned of the Lightning Group, a group of ninja who all possessed a Kekkei Genkai, making them a tempting prize for him to deal with and take their Kekkei Genkai for himself. Only for Kurigakure to wipe them out, much to his annoyance at losing their Kekkei Genkai. Though he still went to collect their bodies for Karen, only to learn he was able to still absorb the Kekkei Genkai of the recently deceased, as long as they were dead for less than a week. Something that pleased Naruto as it let him still gain the Imton and Taiten Kekkei Genkai, as well as learn about Chino who was a former member. Having left the group to return to her home in the Valley of Hell, along with learning about her unique jutsu, the Ketsuriken. Something he would have taken from her given its abilities, but luckily he also learned about Inoyashiro, who also had the Ketsuriken, allowing Naruto to take his. With him then going to find Chino and recruit, who didn't need much convincing after learning the Lightning Group had been wiped out and betrayed by Kiri, much to her anger and sadness. Leading to Chino joining Naruto to help destroy the shinobi system. Karen, how are the new Nomu coming along? Naruto asked, looking at the female Uzumaki, with Karen smiling wickedly. They're coming along amazingly, Naruto-sama. Amari-chan and Hinoka-chan are even beginning to develop their own Nomu, using the research we took from Amachi on how he created the Yumibamzu, these new Nomu should be entirely elemental. Replied Karen, pleased at how far her two new assistances have come since she began training them in medical ninjutsu and creating Nomu. Good, I expect them to be ready soon. And you should expect some new test subjects, Gaten will be sending a new shipment of Kekkei Genkai users that will be put through Castle Dusk. Once Kasumi Haim sends word which ones are worth anything, I'll send you the rest. Naruto said, making Karen's smile grow. I'll be eager to see which ones you send and what they can do. Karen said, excited to get new Kekkei Genkai users to turn into Nomu. What of the villages and the Akatsuki, Shino? Said Naruto, turning to his spymaster next. Shino had also undergone the process to be turned into a high-end Nomu, giving him even greater control over insects, while even able to teleport himself and others through swarms of them. Not to mention he could see and hear everything his insects did. Which also made him the perfect spymaster, given how his insects can slip into any room, anywhere. With no one being the wiser that they're being watched and having all their secrets revealed. At the moment Kumo and Iwa are still locked in a stalemate, both simply focusing on gaining as much territory as they can before they start fighting. Kiri is merely strengthening their defenses in preparation for any attack, they're also in the process of locating where the Sanbi is after Yagura's death. As for the Akatsuki, they're planning an attack on the fire temple to capture a boy who possesses part of the Kikbi's chakra, with Itachi and Kisame being the one sent. As well as sending someone to Orochimaru to get his knowledge of the Edo Tensei as a means to revive the Gold and Silver brothers for their own Kikbi chakra, as well as other dead ninja to bolster their ranks. Shino explained, with Naruto humming in thought at all this new information. Before the crime boss stood up and looked over at all his followers. The time has come, it's time for apotheosis to reveal itself to the world. Naruto declared, making all of them smile eagerly that they'll be revealing themselves at last. Gino, you'll be taking some Nomu and hunting down Orochimaru, Karen will accompany you so she can gather all of his research. As well as helping to capture any Kekkei Genkai users under his command, along with anyone that may be worth recruiting. Ordered Naruto, with the Chinook smiling bloodthirstily while her eyes turned blood red. Do I get to kill him and the Akatsuki member? Chino asked eagerly. No, I want Orochimaru brought to me alive, everything he knows and can do, I want it. As for the Akatsuki member, let them live but give them a message of what's coming for the rest of them. Naruto said, desiring to have all the knowledge Orochimaru does for his own. I'll see it done Naruto-sama. Said Chino with a bow, still eager for the chance to help capture a Sannin and scare the Akatsuki. Isaribi, you'll be going to the land of water, find out where the Sanbi is and bring it to me, take Gorgon and Mindstorm with you to help restrain it and deal with anyone that gets in your way. Said Naruto, while referring to the Nomu that Anko and Ino had been turned into. At once Naruto-sama, I'll ensure to bring the Sanbi back. As well as any Kekkei Genkai users Kiri sends after it. Isaribi replied, making the white-haired teen nod in approval. Satsuki, Yakumo, both of you will be going to the fire temple, put Itachi and Kisame in the ground. And bring me that boy with the Kikbi's chakra, along with Samehada. Naruto said, wanting to take back what belongs to him and desiring to have Samehada for himself, seeing it as the perfect blade for him to have. I've been waiting a long time for this. Said Satsuki, eager at the chance to finally kill Itachi, along with ripping out his eyes for herself. I wouldn't mind getting a pair of sharkskin boots. Yakumo smirking darkly, intending to deal with Kisame and gather what Naruto asked for while Satsuki gets her revenge. Hinata, Hanabi, the two of you will be traveling to Hashigakure, find this meteorite they have and bring it to me. While Kanoka and Mogi, both of you will travel to Takigakure to retrieve the hero's water, as well as extending an invitation to the Nanabi Jinchuriki to join us. Should they refuse, capture them and bring them here too so the Nanabi can be extracted. And once all of you have successfully returned, I'll give you all what you want," said Naruto, making the 4 girls perk up before they smiled darkly. "You know where he is then?" Hinata stated, eager for the chance to finally know where Neji is and make him pay. "Yes, I know what hole he's crawled into and the 4 of you will as well, but only after I get what I want," Naruto said, with the 4 girls nodding in response, having no intention of losing the chance to get their hands on Neji. "What about Lee?" questioned Shino. "Tell Lee he's being sent to attack Kumo's and Iwa's forces, have him slaughter them all, any Nomu he encounters will also attack him to keep up the pretense they're loyal to those villages. It'll do good and weaken both sides, along with forcing them to purchase more Nomu," said Naruto, with Shino nodding in response while sending some insects to inform Lee of his new tasks. "While I will be going to Suna to collect Shukaku and wiping the village off the map. I'll be taking Breakdown with me to speed up the process," said Naruto, referring to the Nomu that Tenten had been turned into, having become a walking arsenal of weapons and explosives, which will certainly help in leveling Suna. "You all have your assignments, now get them done," Naruto ordered. Everyone bowed to him before Shino released a swarm of insects, teleporting everyone away to begin their missions. What if Naruto has all for one end here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.